We live? Let's give it a second. Give it a second. There we are. Yo! Welcome back to another episode of the Money Matters podcast. Should be renamed to the Bitcoin Matters podcast. I am your host, Jack. It is a joy to be back with the internet, hanging out with the World Wide Web. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter. We are live on Nostr. Let me make sure all of that is working properly. Chat, you know the rules. Tell me where you're dialing in from, how you're doing. I have a deep voice. Oh, by the way, I'm previewing my beard. I should have opened with that. Do you like my beard? Do you like my beard? Yes or no? All right. Are we live on Twitter? We are. Are we live on YouTube? We are. Are we live on Nostr? I don't know. I think so. Chat, talk to me. We got 128 people on YouTube alone. We've got 147 people on the internet tuning in. We're going to let everyone pile in before I let the boys and before I let the dogs eat. I actually got to send Odell the right link. I think he's in the wrong link. Welcome, chat. Welcome. Happy New Year. Happy New Year and happy belated holidays for those that celebrate. Talk to me, chat. Very hot. My beard is very hot. Ladies, listen. I have a beard today. Look at it. It's hard to focus on the beard when you have a jawline like this, but I need to focus on the beard for now. Ladies, we're going to have to try and keep it together this stream. Try and keep it together. Hold it in. We're going to talk about Bitcoin. This stream is not about my jawline and my beard. It could be. It might make for a better stream, but it's not. We're here to talk about Bitcoin. We're here to talk about Bitcoin in 2025. So, ladies, you're going to have to keep it together. Hold it together for me now. Okay? Hold it together, ladies. I'm taking. I'm kidding. I got daddy issues. Bitcoin fixes that. You got daddy issues? Bitcoin fixes that. Just stack some sats. Where are you dialing in from, chat? Listen, the stream is earlier today because it's the holidays. And we always get feedback of people in Europe. They can't tune in. 6 p.m. Eastern, they're sleeping. And so we're doing it earlier because it's the holidays. We're going to see if we can allow for our European friends to join. The reason I don't do it at this time, not holidays, is because everyone's at work at this time during the day. You can't stream when everyone's at work. So listen, there's no perfect solution. You can't make everyone happy. If I've learned one thing in life, it's that you can't make everybody happy. It is what it is. Okay, sip of water. Lockport, Illinois. Close to me. I don't know where that is. Miles too. Bet I have some soft lips. Damn right. I do. All right. We're going to let the chat continue to pile in. I'm going to let in Odell and potentially American HODL. And we're going to get this show on the road. Let me pull up our topics. We're also going to do, I want to do some trivia with you guys. I had an idea that I'm going to ask Bitcoin-based trivia, and whoever gets it right in the chat first, I'm going to send you some sats over Lightning. And I think that would be fun. We got to listen, a lot of Bitcoin is just, you got to keep it fun. You got to keep it fun. Because as a reminder, How many here, chat? Here's the first trivia question. How many sponsors do we have on this podcast? Can the chat answer me that? Let's see who gets it right first. How many sponsors does the Money Matters podcast have? Zero. B Debs got it correct first. The answer is zero. So listen, zero sponsors, zero this. If you want to support me, you can go download Strike. Other than that, we're in it for the love of the game. We're in it for Bitcoin. I've been in this shit for, hey, kid show, I've been in this shit for 12 years. 12 years. And I wanted a podcast where I could shoot it straight, give the people what they want. So we got to keep it fun. We got to keep it loose. If you want serious stuff, I go on other podcasts. I'd be serious. You want my price predictions? I'll be serious. But this is fun. This is for the love of the game. This is for the people. All right. We've got over 300 people live tuning in. Let me retweet what I need to retweet, and we're going to get started. Ooh, the way the sun is beaming on my shirt, for a second on Twitter, it looks like I'm naked, but I'm not. I know you wish I was, but I'm not. All right. Retweeted. I don't know how the Nostr one works, or else I'd repost it. I trust the internet's got my back on that one, though. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go. I'm coming to you live with a Bitcoin price of $91,960. That makes for a little over 1,000 Satoshis per dollar at 1,087 sats per dollar. The market cap of Bitcoin dropped a little bit. We're below a $2 trillion market cap. We're right now at 1.82 trillion. My thoughts about the price. Listen. It's very simple. I think this market's exhausted. I think the market to me looks exhausted. And I told you guys week after week after week that 100K is a big psychological number. It's going to struggle. This reminds me a lot of the 2017 Bitcoin bull run. In 2016, the Bitcoin price was around $400 when it had its halving. It then marched all the way up to $1,000 by New Year's. And then for December, January, March, February, April, the first quarter of 2017, Bitcoin chopped around and it struggled. It dropped all the way down to $800. It actually was at $2,000 in August. It ended the year at $20,000. I think the same thing is going to happen this time around. The new $1,000 is $100,000. These round numbers, you add a new digit to the price. Big psychological number. Those that have been around for a while taking a little bit of profit. There's the holidays. I think also there's a little bit of fatigue in the market. This was a very emotional election in the United States of America. Very emotional. I think people are tired. You're seeing Elon and Trump fight. You're seeing MAGA moan and complain at each other. I think markets look a little bit fatigued, a little bit exhausted. People got to pay their taxes. So in my opinion, and I've been telling you guys this time and time and time again, I think it's going to take a second for 100K to be the new floor. It's a fatigued market. It's a big psychological number. Am I worried? No. For those that don't know, I've been buying Bitcoin since it was $50. I also bought Bitcoin over $100,000. My company, I run a business where we buy Bitcoin every day. We have revenue in Bitcoin. All of our profits are swept into Bitcoin. I'm a buyer of Bitcoin always. There's nothing in the world I would rather own. The only two things I value are my life and my Bitcoins. Everything else you can make more of, so I don't give a shit about it. So no, this is normal. In a bull run, 20 to 30% drawdowns are normal. Not even that, guys. I really think this market is underestimating. I wish everyone tuning in now and that's in Bitcoin today could have been there for the 2016, 2017 cycle. Bitcoin went from $2,000 to $20,000 in 5 months. In August, it was $2,000. So I would not be surprised if, listen, I could tell you with confidence in 2025, I think there's going to be serious dollar debasement. I think they're going to bring the dollar down. We want a weak dollar in 2025. I think that's what we've gotten from Trump. That's what we've gotten from Besson. I think that's the plan. Over the next 3 months, all bets are off. Trump's got to get inaugurated. I think that there's a lot that this administration has to figure out. There's a lot of promises, and some of them contradict each other. So we got to figure that out. So over the next 3 months, it's anyone's bet. I think this market's fatigued. I think America is emotionally exhausted. I think people are really enjoying the holidays. And so next 3 months, next 90 days, could Bitcoin hit 80? Could Bitcoin stay at 90? Could Bitcoin chop around 100? Yes. Would that surprise me? No. Frequent listeners of the show know that I've been saying that for weeks. But it's my expectation around Q2, once we enter the middle of the year, that Bitcoin starts to run aggressively. And do I think that we'll end the year or at some point next year find ourselves at a price of 250,000 to $1 million? Yes. Yes, I think that is the case. My prediction of $250,000 to $1 million per Bitcoin looks pretty good. About a year ago today, I said, I think we're going to end 2024 around $100,000. I think we're going to end 2025 in between 250 to $1 million. Some call me a genius. I didn't say that. They said that. I'm just kidding. If you knew me in real life, I'm one of the bigger idiots. All right. We got 325 on YouTube. We got 1,700 live viewers on the internet. I love you guys. This is so fun. I'm a CEO of a big company. I'm a boyfriend to an adorable, beautiful woman. I'm a son. I'm a brother. But hanging out with you guys every Monday, it almost takes the cake. Let me tell you, it really, really does. It really, really does. All right. Odell thinks he's waiting in the lobby. He's not, because I set this up. Maybe I set it up wrong. I have it on a new stream. I think he's on the old stream. Let me let him know, and then we'll get into our topics. As you guys know, real quick, as I'm messaging Matt Odell, sent the new link. I'm sorry, Matt. As you guys know, we do Q&A. I try and answer every single question you guys have, because fuck it. I believe in transparency. I think CEOs and just generally people should be more accessible, more transparent. I'm a huge believer in truth, authenticity. Listen, people always say, why are you wearing hoodies? Why are you in an empty closet? Listen, I think the world doesn't need a politician, doesn't need another bald guy in a blue suit and Louboutin sneakers lecturing you how to live your life. I think the world wants authenticity. I think they want real people doing real things, being their real selves. And so part of that, Q&A, I think, is the most underrated thing of all time. I think people should do more Q&A. So I've got a Strike team member that's in the chat. She's lurking. She's spying. Actually, Lavinia, can you make yourself known in the chat? Say hi. What's your YouTube username? Her name is Lavinia. She's great. She's on the Strike team, and she's spying on you guys and writing down all of your questions during the stream. Because listen, I'm not going to interrupt myself and answer your question in real time, but I have a document. I'm looking at it right here. It's to my left. And I see all of your questions, and they're even labeled. Questions about the price, questions about Strike, questions about myself personally. So you guys can ask whatever you want. Lavinia's spying on you, and she's going to write it down, and then we're going to answer it towards the end of the show. Cool? All right. I was a boyfriend to a beautiful girl until I said only 2 things matter to me, and I didn't say my girlfriend. True. If I get dumped for that,
Yo.
I've brought in Matt Odell, the fiercest internet warrior. Last night, I opened Nostr, and I see Matt Odell getting in another fight. Are you fighting on the internet again, mister?
Nah.
All right.
We good. We Gucci.
All right. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. How do I sound?
You sound. I've never heard anything better. This is the best thing that anyone's ever put in my ear.
Well,
You
we'll take it.
sound. I mean, words can't describe how you sound. Is that a fresh cut?
Yes, sir. Just for you.
That's for me. Whoa! If you're new to the program, you'd think Odell and I are dating. That is not my girlfriend. That is my. That is one of my business partners. My girlfriend's not on the show. That is Matt Odell, ladies and gentlemen. Every single show we do, everyone's like, Jack, who are you bringing on the show? Who the fuck are these guys? People got to put a little bit of respect on your name, Matt. What do you have to say to the people that don't put any respect on your name when you join the Money Matters podcast?
I love everyone equally, and if you're a new coiner here, it's great to have you as part of the movement. And I mean, I love doing these streams with you. I've been sitting in the lobby for about 15 minutes. I thought we were going to do a sound check and stuff, and Jack just likes to go live. Just throws me right into the shark. So here I am.
Let me tell you guys a little life lesson. Nobody's got time for that shit. You know what I mean? When you live a life worth living, bang, bang, bang. Nobody's got time for that shit. Sound check. We keep it real for the people. We keep it authentic. All right. Could you hear the whole show so far?
I heard like the last 3 minutes when I realized you were live in a different a different link.
That's on me.
We're good. I can assume what happened.
You know the test of a real man? When he's wrong, does he put his hand up? That's on me. I was wrong. I messed that up. Everyone knows I'm not the professional podcaster that Matt Odell is. And so I could promise you one thing. I'm here to get better, but I'm not here to be perfect. And I fucked that up.
I'm definitely not a professional podcaster.
Jack Dorsey and I beg to get different.
I'm a ride or die Bitcoiner. That's about it.
Professional podcast. How many podcasts do you host?
2. And then this one, I'm like I'm a recurring guest. 2.5.
It sounds pretty professional to me. All right. Well, anyway, I was ranting about the Bitcoin price, a bit of a dip. My point was I still think there's not enough appreciation for how much this cycle is reminding me of 2016, 2017. I think the new $1,000 psychological number is $100,000. I also think that markets are fatigued. I think this was a very emotional election in the U.S. Every financial market to me looks fatigued. It looks out of gas. It looks like people need to rebound. Even just seeing MAGA fight with each other, I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the next 90 days. I have all the confidence in the world we're going to see a weaker dollar in 2025. Inflation's going to come back in a major way. You know that from Trump's wants weaker dollar, Bessent wants weaker dollar. I think you'll get that and more probably in 2025. But over the next 2 to 3 months, I don't know what we're going to get. You got to get the guy inaugurated. And I think people are fatigued. They're emotionally exhausted. So it does not surprise me that Bitcoin's dipping. It could go a little lower. This is normal. You agree with that, I assume? Do you have any thoughts on the dip outside of if you have cash, you should buy it?
Well, the meme every cycle is that it's end of year tax selling. As is tradition, we tend to have the same excuses every time. But yeah, no, I mean, I think we talked about this last show. I'm watching the 2016 cycle. This feels very similar to it, just on a grander scale. So I mean, I pretty much just second everything you just said.
And what I think people don't appreciate about 2016, 2017 is everyone knows that we went from 1,000 to 20,000 in one calendar year. I don't think people remember how exactly we got there. Do you remember? I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you remember? Let me ask you this question. What month do you think Bitcoin crossed $3,000 that year of 2017, considering it ended the year at 20,000?
I think we crossed 3,000, just off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
I think we crossed 3,000 in July.
Yeah, good for you. I think
Nailed
technically
it.
we hit it, we tapped it in May, but yes, July was when we confidently broke it. And I think there's such short-term memory in Bitcoin. What people don't remember is the SegWit and the UASF and all of Bitcoin Cash and SegWit2x, all of that was in August, right? There's August 1st is our holiday, is Bitcoin Independence Day. So I think we hit 4,000 for the first time in Bitcoin's history in August and ended the year at 20,000. So I think when people get a little bit panicked about Bitcoin right now, it really wouldn't surprise me if over the next few months, especially through the inauguration, there's always a lot of volatility introducing a new president, especially in this election. I think we could chop around $100,000 for the next 90 days. We can even see an $80,000 Bitcoin or keep retesting the 90s. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't think this market's going to catch momentum until Q2. That's my guess. It doesn't matter because I don't own any dollars anyway. I only own Bitcoin. So I'm just guessing for the fun of it. But none of this surprises me.
Yeah, I mean, 2017 was a big year for me personally. At that point, I was a very quiet Bitcoiner. I wasn't public on the internet.
You weren't a podcaster?
I would go to meetups and whatnot. And the talking heads at that point, the large influencers of Bitcoin Twitter, which by the way, Bitcoin Twitter was absolutely minuscule at that point. They were all saying Bitcoin is doomed, Bcash is a mess, SegWit2x is a mess, you're better off buying Ethereum. And I remember it clear as day because it was major motivation for me to become more of a public Bitcoiner and to pivot my career to all in on Bitcoin. And it basically all started in that 2017 cycle. And I also remember that Trump getting elected, but more importantly, Hillary losing than Trump getting elected was a signaling mechanism to me that Bitcoin would not be banned or not be outright banned in America. And I at least had 4 years. The Bitcoin movement at least had 4 years in America to really dig our teeth in, rather than just get immediately sent to the gulag. So I used that as motivation, the combination as motivation to go all in on Bitcoin career-wise.
And I'm thankful that you did, my friend. You've done incredible stuff since. I have a similar story too. That was the cycle where I started Zap, which has found its way to become Strike. So pivotal cycle, probably, in my opinion, it's definitely in the Mount Rushmore of cycles. That will always probably be number one. That cycle was massive. I mean, the Bitcoin Independence Day was so significant. That was the day that everybody realized that no one controls Bitcoin, and it is truly distributed independent money, neutral money for the world. All right. I'm seeing everyone tagging me on Twitter about.
It's kind of interesting, right? Because when we say the similarities, like you're seeing a lot of the same talking points, but with different companies this time around. It's like BlackRock and MicroStrategy, while in 2016 there was like a consortium of like the 30 largest Bitcoin companies, and they all wanted to change Bitcoin, and they were actively trying to change Bitcoin, and they failed, proving that Bitcoin is incredibly hard to change by default, being one of the key value props. And now, like, obviously, we're not seeing any active attacks from MicroStrategy or BlackRock, but you're seeing talk around people like, oh, they own too much Bitcoin, they're too influential, blah, blah, blah. And these people clearly did not live through the 2016 cycle.
Bitcoin is the closest thing I've ever seen to a real life deja vu. You live and you learn the same thing every single cycle, every 4 years. I swear to God. In 2012, 2013, it was very similar, but it was Mt. Gox. So Mt. Gox had failed, Silk Road had gone under, and it was, since the government seized Silk Road, can't they seize Bitcoin? Can't they control Bitcoin? No. Because Mt. Gox failed. Didn't Bitcoin fail? No. And then you fast forward and it's the same thing. Who controls Bitcoin? Is it the miners? Is it Roger Ver? Is it Coinbase? No. Now this time, same thing. Well, last time it was FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried. Was it BlockFi? All those heaping piles of trash. And then now this time, BlackRock, Saylor. It's the same thing. You get the same answers. And not only did they fail, but I think, the takeaway really is all you have to do is do the right thing and be on Bitcoin's side. Because Roger Ver didn't only fail like, he tried something and it didn't work. the amount of money that guy lost, and now he might be going to jail. I mean, fail is the polite way of saying utterly and completely destroyed. I mean, Jihan Wu, no one knows who that is today. He was on his way to being like the richest man in the world. He had probably the most valuable business in Bitmain anyone had ever seen. He had a monopoly on a network that was clearly going to be worth tens of trillions of dollars in short order. And he did not do the right thing. And he took the opposing side of Bitcoin. And I think he like went bankrupt at one point. So fail is polite. These people got utterly and completely destroyed. And I think the more Bitcoin grows, you get a higher market cap, and the participants that join. I mean, BlackRock, Sailor, it's really hard to be that wealthy and that successful and stupid. I'm not saying it's impossible, but odds are if you've achieved that much in life and you're buying tens of billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, you're not dumb. And I think these people are very aware of the history. I know that firsthand because part of their awareness of history has come from me. And I don't think these people are that stupid. I think it's a pretty clear, just be on Bitcoin's side, ride the network effects, ride the economies of scale. Nobody's bigger than this thing. I'd be shocked if we saw, almost it feels that way, almost every single cycle, the threats to Bitcoin become lesser and lesser. I felt the most threatened as a Bitcoin holder in 2017. There was absolutely a point where I was like, holy shit, my life savings is in this thing. If the network doesn't do the right thing, or if this code doesn't work, if this patch we're running from Sholin Fry, some random dude on the internet, doesn't work, then all of our savings is gone. And nowadays, I mean, people thinking BlackRock's a threat. Larry Fink's the biggest marketer we have. It's the best thing that's happened to us over the last 12 months. All right. Well, anything else on the price? Because I got a question for you for topic number 1.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Talk to me about Elon. This is, hardly a Bitcoin topic, but Elon, Twitter, censorship, Nostr, every podcast has to talk about this. It was remarkable what happened, what is happening, I guess. I mean, it's still an ongoing global conversation that everyone's having. Yes, about immigration and do we have enough engineers and talent in this country, but more so about him not being shy about his monopoly over Twitter and controlling the conversation and censoring people when he doesn't like what they have to say. Thoughts?
I mean, nobody could have seen this coming. I think it was a major mask off moment for a lot of people, rightfully so. I think, look, our lives are increasingly digital. Our lives rely on these digital systems. Our businesses rely on these digital systems. I mean, Strike has built, for instance, Strike has built a massive network within X, like in Elon's walled garden. And all of that can be at jeopardy at will by basically the decisions of a small group of people. And that's just a ridiculous way to build our infrastructure in the digital age. We need systems that are not controlled by a few individuals. And Bitcoin aims to solve that on the money side. And Nostr aims to solve that on the communication side. And if you combine the two together, you have really profound impacts on society. And I think if systems are built this way, the result is human flourishing. So regardless of Elon's particular opinions here, I think what a lot of people have seen is that this one individual has way too much control over their lives, and that can change at a moment's notice. And I think it can be incredibly empowering for people if they choose to at least dip their toe into a more freedom-oriented route, whether that's Bitcoin or Nostr. And as we discussed at length last week, the easiest way for people to get acquainted with Nostr and play around with it is to download this app called Primal, which you can find in your favorite app store. But big picture, the beauty of Nostr is there's many, many different Nostr apps. So once you create your identity, it's a private key, public key pair, just like Bitcoin. You can move that identity between many different apps. You can use multiple apps at the same time. And if one of the main developers of one of these apps decides to completely lose his shit, call everyone retarded and start banning people and censoring people and demonetizing people that he doesn't like, you can just switch apps and you lose absolutely nothing. Everyone you follow, everyone who follows you, all of your content moves with you. You don't lose anything in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the reality is this. What we've learned, at least in America, I can speak for myself, is that the public conversation and the media shouldn't be trusted to specific corporations. I don't know anybody that gets their exclusive news from the New York Times or the Washington Post or CNBC or CNN. I don't know anybody. I think we've all learned that there's bias, there's backdoor conversations, there's an intent to impose opinion on the public. And what Elon and a lot of the Twitter X crowd is saying, we're bringing free speech back and you are the media now. But what we've learned recently is that should he be trusted with bringing free speech back? Is bringing free speech back his responsibility? Is that his effort to own? Is that contradictory to the point that we don't want any single person responsible for free speech, even if they're the best person in the world, even if Jesus Christ himself came down from the clouds? I'm here. So listen, you could be co-opted. Someone could put a gun to your head. It's really impossible to have free speech if you have to trust anyone. Guys, it's the same thing with Bitcoin. Is yes, we've learned that we should not trust monetary policy and financial markets to Wall Street. But does that mean we should be trusting the Fed? No. Does that mean you should trust your neighbor Joe? Probably not. Does that mean you should trust Elon Musk with your savings? Probably not. There's probably not one person you want to trust. You want to trust a distributed system that can't be changed. Same thing with Nostr. And I think America's going to wake up to the same reality about media. That's just the reality of it. Is, listen, do you want Elon Musk to be responsible for your right to free speech? No. By the way, I didn't elect him to do that. I was never asked my opinion for that. He kind of imposed that responsibility on himself. I've talked about Elon's ego plenty of time. He's a great guy, great entrepreneur, very successful. I'm thankful for a lot of his work. Does he have a big ego? Yes. Did he decide for himself it was his job to give us all free speech? Yeah, he did that. When you put it that way, he kind of sounds like an asshole. And he looks like a clown right now because that's not his job and responsibility to own. It's a natural born right that we all should have. And really, listen, humanity is about engineering a better world. In my opinion, that's the story of humanity. The guy or girl that created the spear, that's engineering a better world. That's making tomorrow better than today. That's using technology to build something that makes our species better. I think the same thing about Bitcoin. I think the same thing about Nostr. When humanity needs help, you build technology. And that is my takeaway from Nostr and what we're seeing with Elon is humanity is going to have to engineer a better world that instills things like freedom of speech from a fundamental technological level. There's no one politician or one corporate leader that's going to give us a human right. I promise you that.
Co-sign that message. And on a tangential note, obviously the majority of our viewers are on YouTube. YouTube has 2.5 billion users, quote unquote, the second largest social network in the world behind Meta. I don't think people really understand the scale of 2.5 billion users. It's basically both them and Meta, their only limiter on their growth is birth rate. Like they need more humans to be born. And obviously YouTube has had there's been a lot of issues with YouTube and censorship and demonetization and deplatforming. And one of the cool things about Nostr is you can also stream to Nostr. So we have a Nostr enabled live chat, which by the way, I've been watching your live chat since before Jack brought me in. It was actually how I realized he was on air. And we have a great group of ride or dies in that Nostr enabled live chat. And the cool part is there's Bitcoin is enabled in that. So they can just send us Bitcoin. Well, they're sending Jack Bitcoin. They can just send Jack Bitcoin without permission. And the largest zap right now is 8,400 sats. Really, really cool to see that. Yes,
and I do want to read a comment from the chat, Sean Wilson. I want to actually directly reply to this in real time because his comment was, how does that make any sense? Elon's just trying to build a free speech platform. How can you hate the guy for that? You can build your own free speech platform if you don't like his. That's fair. I would then maybe disagree with the description that it is a free speech platform. I think it was maybe, if it's more accurately marketed, I'm a free market guy. Elon can build whatever he wants, Sean. My point is this: it's not a free speech platform. It's an Elon speech platform. And that's what we learned. Elon is controlling the speech. He controls what you see. He controls what gets promoted. He didn't like what someone said to him. Then nobody was able to see what that person said. He got it taken off the platform. So that's the equivalent of, what do you mean? The Federal Reserve is creating money. You got a problem with that? Create your own money. They're allowed to create their money. That's true. The Federal Reserve is allowed to create their money. I have no problem. I don't want the Federal Reserve to not be able to do what they want to do. That's absolutely true. But let's not then market it and describe it as a fair, neutral money for the world, and we should be on a dollar standard as the world reserve currency. I'd have no problem if you were to say the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government uses force and violence to support its currency that actively debases and manipulates the time and energy of the public. That's, if you want to describe it accurately, I have no problem with that. So again, calling any corporate owned communications platform as free speech, that might be their intent, but that's actually factually, literally not the case. At the end of the day, who decides which speech gets promoted? Elon. So it is not free speech. It is Elon's speech platform, Sean. That would be my answer. But he could do whatever he wants as long as people know that, and as long as people have options where they don't have to trust anyone with their communication. I think really that's the goal. Again, someone listens to all my podcasts and still wants to own dollars and not Bitcoin, all the power to them. I wish them the best of luck. I'm sorry for their loss. They could do whatever they want. I think I want optionality for this world. I don't think, in order for us to communicate and have access to real-time information and be connected globally, all 8 billion of us, I really, really, really do not want to have to rely on a CEO and a corporation for that human right. I think that I should at the very least have the optionality to not trust anyone with my time and energy in an abstracted form and money, and with my ability to communicate with everybody else. That's all. And with that being said, go Elon, good dude, fighting the good fight, right? Whatever. People get so wound up about Elon. People love that guy, and I get it. He's whatever, good entrepreneur. Sometimes people got to calm down. You've never met the guy. Yeah, it's not a free speech platform.
I just want to state here, The key here is switching costs and user choice, right? So to use myself as an example, for 10 years, I built out content and a network on Twitter that became X. And if I at any point didn't like where that platform was going, and I didn't like where that platform was going before Elon bought it, I didn't have any options available to me. I would have to start fresh. It was like everything that I had worked hard on and actually put in effort for, I would lose. And eventually, some really talented open source developers came up with Nostr, and there was another path. Instead of you still had to do the fresh start, but instead of doing a fresh start on someone else's closed platform, you could actually do a fresh start on a strong foundation, not quicksand. And so what I did was I had at that point, amassed a huge amount of followers, 250,000 plus followers. I was one of the most active people on Bitcoin X, and I just nuked the whole thing because I wanted to leave on my own terms, and I switched over to Primal. And obviously that had significant, significant loss in reach. Like, that is real, right? Like if you delete this foundation that you've built up over a long period of time, you have real loss there. But as Nostr grows, and that's why I have to explain to some of our viewers about what I've been doing over the last few years, because they're new to the space and I just don't exist on X anymore. I unpersoned myself. But why is this important? This is important because if you live in that walled garden, you have to constantly, effectively ask permission to speak. And you might not even know you're doing it. You might be doing it subconsciously. If you're sitting there and your whole business relies on X, and you see Elon demonetizing and deplatforming and shadow banning people that disagree with him, you probably will not disagree with him. You might even actually go to his defense and go to support him because you want to make sure that you have security in that. But in Nostr, if that happens on Nostr, you have zero switching costs. You can literally move wherever you want and you don't lose anything. And as a result, the user has real actionable voice. They can actually facilitate the world they want to see because they can move and there's competition, and at the end of the day, the user wins. The user gets the benefit of better tools, of better services available to them, and then hopefully to their children and their children after them.
Agree. I agree. It is what it is. I mean, these things will play out. I think society is going through a natural healing process. I've said, I think the cyclical nature of humanity is sometimes we get so far away and so far abstracted from our natural state. I love the quote, at the end of the day, humans are part of nature. I think we're meant to be governed by the immutable laws of the universe and Mother Nature. And so I think sometimes we get so far abstracted away from that, where you find yourself eating Beyond Beef burgers instead of steak. You find yourself paying $100,000 to learn how to add numbers together. You find yourself being convinced that a life of debt and government spending and war is the right life to have. You find yourself owning a money that someone else can print and working for a money that another man can create out of thin air. You find yourself entrusting and relying on another man to speak. And then I think naturally humanity, there's a reversion back to the means. And sometimes it's very painful, but I think we've gotten so far abstracted away where you've got debt-based money, you got sick, unhealthy people, divorce rates, obesity rates, suicide rates, all these things are up. And I think it's going to be a decent amount of pain to get back to what's true and what's real. And it is what it is. And obviously everyone listening to this podcast is better prepared for those that aren't. Buy Bitcoin, eat steak, lift heavy things, be in the sun, lead with love, have kids, right? But I think that Nostr and what's going on with Elon is going to fall right back into the category of everything else. You're going to realize that there is no savior for humanity. There's no such thing. There's no born savior for us all. And he's going to get humbled just like everybody else. Nobody makes it out alive. Mother Nature and the universe conquers all. No one human is bigger than the rest of us at a fundamental level.
I just, before we wrap on this topic, I just want to say, unlike a lot of the people that deleted their ex after me, I do not hate Elon. I don't think hate is a very productive thing. I think he's built a lot of really impressive shit. Particularly, I absolutely love Starlink. Like, my family and my businesses rely on Starlink. It is absolutely awesome. So I hope he pulls off everything that he has ambitions to do. I just don't think one man should have all that power, and I'm not willing to ask someone permission to live my life.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's about whether I think he should have power or not. I'm just saying, for a matter of fact, he can't. There is no such thing. And again, yeah, like it's the same thing as like, I don't think eating organic foods and being in the sun and exercising is good for you. I want Starbursts and video games to be good for you. You could think all you want. You're going to get fat and you're going to die. And so the reality is very simple. I'm telling you, there is truth and there is a rule of law and order in the universe, in Mother Nature. You could think like, I want water bottles to be money. I don't want Bitcoiner dollars to be money. Go for it. You're going to be poor, but you could do whatever you want. So it's not even whether I want Elon. Do I think Elon's a good guy? Does he mean well? Sure, probably. I hope so for his sake. But it's not about what I think. It doesn't matter. If this is the laws of the universe, you got to own money that no one else can make. You got to eat organic foods and nutrients that your body needs. You need to see the sun. The story of humanity is commercializing energy from the sun. With no access to the sun, you're going to die. These are all things that I don't care what you or I think. That's just the law of the universe. So is one man responsible for my speech? No. Whether I like it or not? No. So Elon can either learn that by listening to the Money Matters podcast, or he can learn by trying and failing. Either way, we're going to get the same result. And I know what side of history I want to be on. I have Nostr pub key. I have Bitcoin. I run a Bitcoin business. I do not want to be on the side of the world that has government bonds, U.S. treasuries, U.S. dollars, and relies on Elon Musk for my ability to have access to information, news, and to speak.
Hopefully one day we'll have him on the show.
Sure. Be great. Wouldn't be the first time we turned a no coiner into a Bitcoiner world. That's also the story of humanity. No coiner to Bitcoiner. All right. Here's another topic I got for you, Mr. Matt Odell. El Salvador. A lot of rumbling about their relationship with the IMF, the new deal that was struck. It looks like they went out and did a few smash buys to almost speak to the community without words and say, we believe in Bitcoin. This has nothing to do with our commitment to the future world reserve currency that is sats. What do you think about the new IMF deal? Does it worry you? Does it scare you? Does that make Bukele a liar? Is he revoking any of his commitment to Bitcoin and freedom, at least from the monetary stance? We can keep this podcast about money and not politics to the best of our ability.
I mean, I'll keep my response brief because I'm curious on your opinion here. And maybe you're more qualified to have an opinion since you're so involved in the early days of El Salvador and Bitcoin. The reason IMF loans are predatory historically is because it's basically the way that the U.S. and our allies subjugate less successful countries. And we do that by basically enslaving them in debt. So what the IMF does is they hold a carrot out, they hold a huge loan out, and the current president will take that loan. But the loan terms are extremely long. And there's no way for the country to ever pay it back. So what happens is 40 years down the line, 60 years down the line, the country still has a massive debt burden and a growing massive debt burden that they can't dig themselves out of. But the president who accepted the deal and got immediate expenditures out, like a new library or new schools or new whatever, gets credit for that stuff, but then he's long gone by the time the debt is due and you're trying to pay it off. And we see that with Argentina. Argentina is the perfect example of it because they have this massive, massive, massive debt burden that was built up through the years that was done by previous leaders, not Malay. So that's why it's predatory. And that's why it's just a completely predatory organization. This is why people are just, when they hear IMF, they think bad things to begin with. Anyone who's educated on the topic. Now, in this case, it is a little bit different, right? Because El Salvador is building a Bitcoin treasury. So there's two things here. First of all, the loan is absolutely massive. So it's 1.4 billion directly from IMF, but it opens up a total loan package of 3.5 billion from like IMF sister organizations. So you can think of this as a $3.5 billion loan. Now, if they actually start aping into Bitcoin in a big way, which they already have, they do this cool thing where basically every day the government's treasury adds 1 Bitcoin. So it's like a stepladder. After this loan happened, 2 of the days they added 11 Bitcoin. And so they have proof of reserves. You can actually track it on the government website. It's powered by mempool.space. And you can see the treasury increase. Now, if they take a large portion of this loan and they put it into Bitcoin, presumably at any time in the future, they can pay it off. So I think, one, it's easy to be a bystander that's not Salvadoran, that is completely not involved in this at all, to be like, no, you should stand on your principles. I think most of us, if we were offered a long-term loan of $3.5 billion in a Bitcoinizing era, would probably take it and stack Bitcoin with it. And the second few pieces, it seems like the terms that he agreed to, one was Previously on the books, they had a law that said all merchants had to accept Bitcoin, which I think was a predatory portion of the law anyway. Like if you're a small storefront, you should be able to choose if you want to accept Bitcoin or not. And that part of the law was never really enforced. So merchants were actually choosing anyway. So that's pretty much a no factor. And then the second piece is now you can't pay taxes in Bitcoin, which is a bit frustrating. But the way the tax structure works in El Salvador, you can simply convert to dollars and pay your taxes in dollars. El Salvador runs on dollars. They don't have their own currency. So it's not really, I don't see either as like that big of a loss. And if they actually use it to not do irresponsible spending, but instead save more in Bitcoin, then it could actually probably work out long term for the country. What's your opinion, Jack?
One of my favorite quotes about debt of all time is authored by my father. And he says, the only problem with debt is it just won't go away until you pay it back. That's the problem, right? Is people that can't afford something go into debt. And unless something drastic changes, they're not going to be able to pay it back. And the only way to solve debt is more debt. And that's the predatory relationship that the IMF has with a lot of the world. So the only problem with that is it won't go away until you pay it back. So if you can't pay it back, you got to come back to the IMF and get another loan. So that is why people like myself don't think so highly of the IMF. Now, for El Salvador, this is huge. Access to this amount of capital, first of all, goes to show the strength that they've built since their last loan. GDP up. Local business up. I mean, every single KPI that you would want. Tourism way up. I mean, they're getting people to move back into the country that were born there. They're getting people to move into the country that were born in Manhattan. The country is multiples better than it was 4 years ago. In regards to the terms that they accepted, let me tell you guys a real life story. So I was there in El Salvador. I was a material part of the bill, of the law, of advising the government into what became Bitcoin legal tender. There were a few parts that I severely disagreed with at the time. One was Chivo. I did not think Chivo was a very good idea. In fact, I've seen so many rumors. I didn't have my own podcast at the time, or else I would have addressed these rumors. I saw so many rumors at the time that Strike was going to build Chivo, but I demanded $250 million of cash payment. That never, ever happened. Here's what happened. They asked and said, what do you think about the wallet? Who's going to build the wallet? We need a government wallet. And I said, I think that's a bad idea, because I don't think governments are ever really better at the free market and building technology. I don't think that's the government's job. I think what the government probably wants to do is foster an environment where entrepreneurs and businesses want to build in El Salvador. Maybe there's regulation and licensing that would support businesses coming here. Maybe there's favorable tax treatment. Maybe there are ways to get the Jack Dorseys of the world or the Strikes of the world or whoever to come and build amazing products in El Salvador. And that's the wallets and the services that the people will use. If you try and you're never going to build better consumer-facing products than Jack Dorsey. No government is, right? You go on to the IRS's website to pay your taxes, or you go sit in line to get a new driver's license. The government's bad at everything. That's not the government's job. That was one thing we disagreed on. Now, obviously, they had their opinion. I've been public and open about this. One of the reasons is they wanted their citizens to trust them and to know that this wasn't like a project done by a bunch of Americans that own Bitcoin, that the government was here to support the people and they were going to build a wallet for them in case they didn't want to use an American-born or non-Salvadoran-born product. That's what happened. But the fact that Chivo is being wound down and is going to be taken private, and it's going to be a wallet that's going to compete in the free market and that people don't have to use, I think that's phenomenal. And that was part of my opinion 4 years ago. 3 years ago. Another opinion I had is I did not like the forceful nature of Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin wins in the free market. It is the better money. And with enough time and with a chance, Bitcoin is going to be the world reserve currency no matter what, because it's better money. And so the idea that there would be forceful adoption, I didn't love that part either. And again, this isn't about someone being right or wrong. I think that this is a phenomenal deal for the country of El Salvador. For people that say, why are they doing business with the IMF? I'll tell you who would take a loan from the IMF if it meant that they could buy Bitcoin and build a future they want. Saylor. If the IMF was willing to loan to Saylor, I bet he'd take that. That guy takes any dollar-denominated debt and just stacks sats. So the fact that El Salvador's doing the same thing Saylor's doing. And what are the terms? Well, you let the public use the wallets of the free market and let the Jack Dorseys of the world build the consumer-facing technology that people are going to use, not the government. And you let merchants use it if it's useful. Those are the terms to get a Saylor-esque deal to stack sats and continue to build prosperity in that country. Again, lowest crime rates in the world, El Salvador. They've got some of the cleanest now country in the world, hardest money. I mean, they're trying to build the Latin American Singapore, in my opinion. Tough on crime, clean, innovative, progressive, hard money. This is an easy deal in my book. These are terms that I would have put in place if I had any real say 3 years ago. And the fact that they, were at that place and they get $1.3 billion, I was shocked to see people had lip service about this one. I was shocked. This is the government's job, is to find ways to finance a better future for their citizens and let businesses build. By the way, for those that don't know, Strike has a Salvadoran entity. We run a lot of our business out of El Salvador. It is the most friendly and favorable environment for us in our product building. For example, in America, I'm still waiting on my BIT license. There's a lot of places in America I cannot even solicit customers and serve my products. El Salvador, there's no taxes. Because I'm a Bitcoin company and I deal in Bitcoin, they don't even tax me. They want my business there. They want us innovating there. So it's really hard for me to critique El Salvador, any part of this deal.
We're on the same page.
It's the truth. I don't know, Chad, if you disagree and you want to drop your thoughts in the comments, but I mean, this is a steal. I think a lot of the media reaction is because the IMF has to save a little bit of face. We've been embarrassing them for a while now, just dog walking them in public. And so if they need to save face and say, we got El Salvador to backtrack on a few Bitcoin things, and that was what's going to make them sleep better at night, whatever. That's childish, insecure behavior. So I don't know if that's why the media is pushing that narrative, that's fine. But I mean, these are things that should have happened anyway, with or without the IMF. And the fact that we get $1.3 billion and progress, one of the best deals I've ever seen. Fair?
I'm completely co-sign. I mean, I think the Bitcoin deniers running with the narrative is not surprising. A surprisingly large number of Bitcoin talking heads ran with the narrative, which is, I guess, also not surprising. Rage provides good engagement.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Matt Odell. What about Bitcoin-backed lending? Now, I have to be careful on this topic because I have already said on this podcast I'm working on that product. But a friend of the show, Ross Stevens, his annual shareholder letter for Stone Ridge is all over Bitcoin Twitter. And I'm getting pinged left and right. Did you see what Ross wrote? Did you see what Ross wrote? Yes, I saw what Ross wrote. Ross wrote about the potential of Bitcoin-backed loans, collateralized lending using Bitcoin instead of real estate, instead of your equities portfolio, and the potential that has in a variety of directions. And that Stone Ridge and NYDIG was going to play a critical role in that. I know what Ross is working on. I'm very excited about it. I may or may not be involved in it, so I can't speak too much on it. But I think we should talk about the potential of Bitcoin-backed lending and why it's better than a traditional loan, don't you think?
Yes. I mean, 1031 is the largest investor in Strike.
I know. I'm putting you in a tough spot. We just had a board meeting and we talked a lot about what Ross wrote in his letter. So we're in a bit of a difficult spot here, but I think we keep this at let's flush our current selves down the toilet and let's reincarnate and be reborn into just a non-Bitcoin Twitter account. Why would you want a loan against your Bitcoin? Why is this a big deal? Why does Bitcoin make this better?
So Bitcoin is the best collateral in the world, period. It is highly liquid. It's highly saleable. It increases in purchasing power over time. It's incredibly easy to use in terms of programmatic conditions. So strictly speaking, Bitcoin is the best collateral. If you're going to take a loan out on something, and if you're going to be providing a loan to someone, Bitcoin is the best collateral. Specifically in this environment and currently early days of adoption, over-collateralized Bitcoin loans is the best collateral if you are a lender. And in that situation, what does an over-collateralized Bitcoin loan look like? It looks like you give someone $10 worth of Bitcoin as collateral, so that's held in escrow as collateral for the loan, and then they give you $4 in USD terms for that loan. And the reason it's over-collateralized is because Bitcoin, at this point in its adoption cycle, is very volatile. So you don't want to be constantly liquidating people and calling the loan because Bitcoin falls 20%. That's just a normal day for Bitcoin. So this is the current situation. And the current situation for the average Bitcoin user is that when we sell, if you are a long-term holder, you're paying about 20, and you live in the United States, I think most of our listeners live in the United States, you're paying about 20%-ish in capital gains tax, long-term capital gains tax. And obviously, you would rather not pay 20% in capital gains tax. And what do rich people do? Rich people that hold all their assets in, Tesla or Apple or whatever, they take a loan against their stock or real estate. They take a loan against their assets, and by doing that, they end up paying the interest rate instead of paying the taxes. So if you're supposed to pay 20% and you can take a loan out and you're paying 7% or 6% on that loan, then all of a sudden you're not paying that full tax burden in a completely legal way. So this is why it's very appealing to people, particularly Bitcoin rich people right now. They want to be able to use their Bitcoin, but they don't want to pay that full 20% cap gains tax. Now, from a user perspective, it's really important here that if you do use this type of product, that you are very responsible about it and you're very humble about it. And I will just give you a personal story. So back during the COVID era, back during the last cycle, I think it was, it was like late 2021, it was like late 2021. My wife and I, we saw a property in New Hampshire that we really, really wanted. We really liked this property. And we considered taking out a Bitcoin loan, a Bitcoin collateralized loan, at about $60,000, $65,000 per Bitcoin. At that point, it seemed like it wasn't the worst idea in terms of risk management. But we sat to ourselves and we said, what happens if Bitcoin goes down 80%? And we're like, oh, that probably is not going to happen. Like we're probably going to double from here, and we'll go from 60K to 120. And we said, nope, that is not humble enough. And so we decided not to take that loan, and we moved to Nashville and we rented instead. And we rented a very humble little like cottage style house. It turns out that we ended up falling all the way to $15,000. And if we bought that house, we probably wouldn't have gotten liquidated, but we would have ended up in a situation where we were just constantly sending Bitcoin to refill the collateral on the loan. So it's just a long way of saying that this type of product can be very useful to Bitcoiners today and going forward. It's an excellent way to effectively manage your assets, but you have to be very humble and deliberate about how much risk you take. And you should basically always operate under this assumption that Bitcoin could drop 80%, 85%, and think about what that situation is at that point.
Agree. And all right, chat, you're getting me a little wound up. Why is everyone so crabby in the chat today? Santa put coal in your stocking? You guys are bitching up a storm in the chat today. You've got me a little fired up. It's like, Jesus Christ. Everyone's like, El Salvador's not for the free world because they don't like weed and lending your Bitcoin's the worst thing you could do. Go get a job, you bum. Like, Jesus Christ, chat, calm down. Happy New Year to you too. All right, let me work through all of the asinine things I've seen in the chat. We're going to go one by one. Here's the deal. Fundamentally, let me tell you guys something. Bitcoin as a network used to be worth $0. It's now worth, rounding a little bit, $2 trillion. That's another way of saying there's been $2 trillion worth of wealth created for people. People have made a lot of money in wealth appreciation owning the thing that's gone up about 100% a year every year. Okay? Now, logically, people want access to that wealth. Let's say you've made $1 million stacking sats and staying humble. The question becomes, how do you access that money? Traditionally, the only way to access your wealth in Bitcoin is by getting rid of your Bitcoin. That's the problem. I want access to the wealth. I don't want to get rid of the wealth. This is not new. Let's take Manhattan real estate developers, for example, Saylor's favorite example. If you bought Manhattan real estate and property in New York in the year 1600, and then in the year 1800, you're sitting on a ton of valuable real estate. But what if the only way to access that wealth that you've garnered from owning hard assets is to sell the New York building? That would be awful. So what do people do? They take out a loan against their building. So they have access to the wealth and ability to finance their life without selling the scarce, desirable asset because they want to hold it forever. That option does not exist in Bitcoin. If I have a lot of Bitcoin or my Bitcoin's gone up in price and I want to buy a home, I want to afford my kid to go to Harvard, I want a diamond ring and propose to my girlfriend, I want to go extra hard and extra loving for Christmas this year, the only option is to sell my Bitcoin. And that is the problem. So can we build a collateralized lending market in Bitcoin? So to be clear, this is not you loaning your Bitcoin to someone else and getting a yield on it. This is you depositing your Bitcoin and getting a loan against it. It is not anything you have to use. If you don't want it, you don't have to. But the reality is this: either you get a loan against your Bitcoin to access the wealth, or you get rid of your Bitcoin. That's the only two ways to access the wealth that you have in Bitcoin and that you've gotten through wealth appreciation in Bitcoin. Oop, muted myself. Does that make sense, chat? That's the reality of the situation. That's why it's valuable. There's $2 trillion worth of wealth that's been created in Bitcoin, and the only way to access it is by selling your Bitcoin. Nobody wants to do that. But people, of course, want their lives changed. If you were worth $100,000 5 years ago and you're now worth $5 million, you might want a nicer house. You might want a nicer car. You might want a nicer vacation without selling your sats. To Matt's point, there's tax consequences in that. You might as well chalk 25 to 30% of your Bitcoin portfolio up to the government if you're going to have to be selling. All of that's true. But it's the fundamental point that we're building wealth in this asset class, and we want to access the wealth without selling it. Now, I just mentioned with El Salvador, the only problem with debt is it doesn't go away until you can pay it back. So you should never get yourself in a financial arrangement that you cannot afford. You know what's crazy is we live in a world where when you say things out loud, it sounds like I'm talking to a bunch of toddlers. But that's the world we live in. People get themselves into fiscal situations that they can't afford. One of those is our government. But generally speaking, you should not set yourself up financially in a situation where you cannot afford it. If you are reliant on the Bitcoin price to only go up, that's a bad idea. If you are reliant on a promotion that you haven't gotten yet, that's a bad idea. So don't exceed your means. Don't be an asshole. Live generously. Be humble. Live with some humility. Set yourself up in a fiscal situation with some cushion, with some padding. Protect yourself. But I'll speak now from firsthand experience. Strike is building this product because I want this product. Why do I want this product? I live only on Bitcoin. Everyone knows I own $0 I only own Bitcoin. The only way for me to live my life and pay my bills every month is by selling my Bitcoin. Now, it's great because Bitcoin goes up 100% every single year, which means it doubles every single year. That's phenomenal for me. So I don't mind having to sell it as long as my net worth doubles every single year. It's the cost you pay for the luxury of being born while Bitcoin's being created and growing. Now, what would be even better is if I can get a loan against my Bitcoin, use the loan to pay my bills. That way I'm living on Bitcoin and I never have to sell it. Guys, this is me accessing my wealth in Bitcoin without having to sell it. Let me tell you the dream product in Strike. I have my direct deposit into Strike, and I have my bills hooked up to Strike, and I have some Bitcoin sitting on Strike. There's a loan against that Bitcoin. So Strike's giving me the cash I need every month to pay my bills. Then every time my paycheck comes into Strike, the amount needed to go down to pay off some of the loan will go to pay off the loan. The rest will go into Bitcoin. That way, I'm stacking sats every single paycheck. I'm paying down my loan every single paycheck. I'm constantly accumulating Bitcoin. I'm never selling it. I'm never incurring a taxable event. I don't have to pay capital gains on my Bitcoin. My Bitcoin stash goes up. It never goes down, and I live my life with the most Bitcoin exposure I could want. The fact that people in this chat don't comprehend that is mind-numbing. Okay, the last thing. Sorry, it's long rant. I just got to tick my way through some of the most blasphemous comments I've ever seen. Why is Bitcoin? This is more interesting though. Why is Bitcoin perfect for a collateralized loan? Well, guys, listen. How do you finance a loan? If I were to say I'm doing loans for your real estate, and you were to say, okay, how do I deposit my apartment complex? What app do I have to download to do that? Depositing an apartment complex for me to give you a loan? Kind of complicated. What if the market gets volatile? What if we go to war? What if Putin tweets something nasty? Can I sell your guest bedroom on a Sunday night? Can I sell your kitchen appliances on a Monday morning before market open? No. So it's very difficult to give loans on these assets. It's very complicated, oftentimes expensive. There's all sorts of rules. There's all sorts of risks. The fact with Bitcoin, 24/7, 365, you guys can deposit and withdraw it whenever you want. On a Sunday night, that market is liquid. Monday morning before market open, it's liquid. Bitcoin is pristine, perfect collateral, which is not only good for Strike and those giving a loan, it's also good for the borrower because you're going to get the best terms. The easier it is for people to service you the product, the better the product will be, and that includes pricing as well. So I assume that Bitcoin will become the pristine best asset to get a loan against. I think it will eventually become the cheapest loan that you could finance responsibly. And I am very, very excited to try and get this product to the market. And I will be Strike's first customer. And I'm going to use it. Right now, I sell Bitcoin every single month. And as soon as our loan product is ready, I'm never going to sell Bitcoin again. Let me say that one more time. You want to know how valuable this product is? This product will mark the last day I ever sell Bitcoin. Are you guys comprehending how big this product is for those that are interested in it? You go from needing to sell Bitcoin to access the wealth to never having to sell your Bitcoin. Rant over. What do we think, chat? Are you still really angry?
Jack, I don't know if you're watching the Nostr chat, but it's kind of beautiful because it's like two different worlds are part of the same stream. First of all, Learn to Cole zapped you 21,000 sats. So shout out Learn to Cole. Pablo 7Z, one of the most prolific Nostr and Bitcoin developers, asked a question in the Zaps chat, and I think I know the answer, but I'm curious your answer here. He's non-US. What are your thoughts on this product for non-Americans?
All the same. At Strike, what we try and do, we're not perfect, but what we try and do is build products for the world, Bitcoin products for the world. That's what gets us the most excited. So we're in over 100 markets. We serve all major currencies. So we got the dollar, the pound, the euro, and then for all other markets, we have Tether. And this product, we plan on building it for everyone because, listen, guys, this is what you want. You want to have your wealth, your value, your time, your energy, your effort, your labor in the best money you can get your hands on, the scarcest money you can get your hands on. Now, for all of us listening to this podcast, that's Bitcoin, right? So you want as much money in Bitcoin as you can possibly afford. Okay. Then ideally, you let that sit there and appreciate. You let the things around you in your life get cheaper because you're holding Bitcoin, and you borrow against it to live your life. That is the most ideal situation. And whether that loan is in dollars, whether that loan is in euros, whether that loan is in pounds, whether that loan is in Tether, that is borrowing and spending the money that only goes down, saving and hoarding and never selling the money that only goes up. And why we're so excited about it at Strike, listen, as an American, I get my paycheck into Strike. I pay my bills with Strike. It acts as a financial account for me. And so the mere fact that I can get a loan on Strike, and when my paycheck comes in, Strike's going to be smart enough to say, okay, we're going to take this percentage of your paycheck and pay off the loan a little bit. We're going to take this percent of your paycheck and just stack Bitcoin. And then I've got a constant loan. Strike's basically floating me the dollars to pay my monthly bills, and I'm never selling the Bitcoin. And again, yes, the loan, I mean, listen, the loan's going to cost you money. There's going to be some rate that you're going to have to pay. The question is the rate lower than the expected annual growth of Bitcoin, right? So if Bitcoin's growing 60 to 100% a year and the rate is 4, 5, 6, 7%, who cares? Because by the way, I'm saving 25% by not selling the Bitcoin, right? So as long as the loan is cheaper than that and it's easy and I'm getting my paycheck into this product, I'm so excited about this product because listen, guys, we get product requests all the time. It's like, hey, Jack, you should do this, small, tiny feature that I saw on another app, and I think it's really cool. And I'm all for it, and I love hearing your guys' feature requests, but we try and focus on the really big ones, like building a global Bitcoin company. That was a really big one. It's like, can someone build a Bitcoin-focused business that's operative in over 100 countries? That's like not a small feature. That's a big, that's the shit that gets me going. And I do what I do because I'm here to solve the hard problems. This is one of those products that really gets me going. I know there's fancy new Bitcoin shit that other apps launch every other week, and they're cute and they're fun and Twitter loves them. This is, if you don't ever want to sell your Bitcoin again, you don't have to. That product, that's dimension changing product. That's unlocking a new era of Bitcoin level product. That is, you might as well own, listen, because another reason, guys, that people own a lot of real estate and monetize real estate for their savings is because they can borrow against it. They can get cash against their real estate. It's been difficult. You buy about a bunch of Bitcoin, but then if you want access to the wealth, you got to sell the Bitcoin. You got a big tax bill. I think this unlocks a new market in Bitcoin, unlocks the ability for you to never have to sell it. So I think it's a global product. I think everyone, I would love if my customers in Nigeria and in Argentina and in El Salvador were borrowing Tether against Bitcoin. Same thing. Borrow the money that you want to spend to live your life that only goes down and hoard Bitcoin, never sell it.
Love it.
Yeah. So we're working on the product. You guys should read. Outside of that, I mean, Ross's annual letters they're art. He's been writing them for quite some time. If you haven't read any of them and you have some downtime over the holidays, I would go read them all. They're all very, very good. His newest one just dropped. It's great. He talks about Bitcoin lending in there, but he talks about a ton of stuff. He had some really great quotes. Were you going to say something, Matt?
When Ross speaks, pay attention. He has a great paper on Bitcoin as free speech that people should check out as well.
Yeah, and he opens his shareholder letters with these really profound quotes. And there was a Satoshi quote in here that I had never heard in my life. Never go to sea with 2 chronometers. Either take 1 or 3. I love that. That was supposedly Satoshi on version 0.1 of Bitcoin. Did he make that up, or is that a real quote?
I mean, it's probably from seafaring people.
You
understand the reasoning, right?
Yeah, but I mean, It's just a phenomenal Satoshi was so bright and profound. I love Satoshi quotes or scrolling through Bitcoin talk. Um, but man, I'd never heard that one. Anyway, Ross is great. Very excited about lending in the Bitcoin space. Very excited about what we're working on with Strike, and we're hopeful to get that product out fairly soon. Fairly soon.
Let's go.
Okay, brother. Here's what I think we should do. Those were the major topics I wanted to cover. Some price action, Elon Musk, El Salvador, and Bitcoin lending. Unless you've got any more, I think we do. I was going to do Q&A. I also wanted to introduce a new section where I do a little trivia with the chat, and that I would send them sats to their Lightning address for whoever got it right first. Just some Bitcoin-based trivia. I think that would be kind of fun. And the fact that we've got internet money that I could send in small amounts in real time is pretty cool. So
how are you going to figure out their Lightning address?
They're going to have to put in the chat.
Okay, fair enough.
Should we do Q&A first or some trivia first?
Let's do Q&A first.
Okay. Q&A. Odell, can you give context on what Elon did for Odell to delete his Twitter account? Did he censor you? Did he censor someone? Why'd you do that?
I feel like we've already covered this at length. But look, I had historically, I've only had one social media for the last decade, and that was Twitter and then X. I'm not like a big social media person. I have no LinkedIn, no Facebook, no Instagram, no TikTok, no social media, except for Twitter and then X. And the reason was because I wanted to talk about Bitcoin in an open discussion format, right? I love the idea of being able to have open, transparent discussions with other people that care about the same topic as you. And specifically, my topic was Bitcoin. Literally, for my whole existence on Twitter and X, it was only about Bitcoin. But I had growing concerns just how much focus was on this single walled garden platform before Elon bought it. But it continued after Elon bought it. And fortunately, Nostr came around. Fortunately, for the first time, we had a better option. And I was looking at my life and the trajectory of my life and my priorities. And recently, my wife and I started a family. And I don't want to be someone who is using social media in 10 years or 15 years. I want to focus on my family and focus on the real world. But in the meantime, while I have this momentum, like if I can help in a small way, help move the momentum and move the conversation over to an open protocol like Nostr, where people have true freedom, where people are not building on quicksand within these big tech walled gardens, then I'm going to take that opportunity. And so I chose to take my will and my life into my own hands. And rather than wait for a potential censorship opportunity, I said, fuck that. Let's move to greener pastures. Let's be the change we want to see in the world. And fortunately, a bunch of people moved with me. And I'm grateful every day for our growing freedom-oriented community over on Nostr, and more of you guys should join us.
It was one of the more brave, heroic moves I've seen. Yeah. I think you sacrificed 250,000 followers or something. It was a big number. Okay. Could El Salvador create a national currency based on their BTC reserves, just like it was during the gold standard?
Jack?
I'll take this one. Yeah, sure. Anyone can, of course. I think it's more complicated than people realize. With money, there's a lot of network effects and economies of scale that come with something like the dollar. Interoperating with, if you create your own money, who's going to accept it? How are you going to do global trade? How are you going to settle with those that you import and export with? And so it's not as easy. As an individual, I could say, I'm never owning dollars and I'm only owning Bitcoin. As a country, and you are operating on behalf of millions of citizens, it's a little bit more complicated. So could they? Yes. Will they? Maybe. Will they soon? Probably not. It's a little bit more complicated than people realize, but yeah, absolutely. You can. And, will we see that from the United States at some point? Hopefully before we die? Probably. Or,
I
don't need a currency on top of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can't, when I logic this out, like, I just don't understand why you should just use sats. And like, I think you should just use Bitcoin. Like, I think that maybe larger currencies, particularly the United States that already has the reserve currency, might try. Like, if you follow the incentives, like, it makes sense they would want to have more control. And you have more control if you have a fiat currency that is backed by Bitcoin, and you still can convince people to use it. But the difference between gold and Bitcoin is that it's really hard to do day-to-day commerce with gold. And it's even harder to do digital commerce with gold. Bitcoin doesn't have that problem. So I think on a long enough time scale, all these currencies will be outcompeted by Bitcoin. I think and it's not going to come down to what governments want. It's going to come down to what average people want. They're going to want to transact in something that doesn't require trust, that is just strictly better than every other money available, and they're going to choose Bitcoin.
Yeah, I've said this time and time again. Money is time and energy in an abstracted form. You can either get up and go to work every single day, or you can print money. That's quite the luxury. And so when do I expect governments to forgive their ability to print human effort and allocate it to themselves? That'll be the day when they literally have no other choice. So we probably a long time. What is the look on your face? Is it something I said?
No, I'm just reading chat. Don't pay attention
the way
to
I
my
look,
face.
Matt? Is it my beard?
Yeah, it was all chat.
No, I think it's quite some time before we see governments forgive their ability to print. But to Matt's point, Bitcoin's the end game. It just depends how long it takes us to get there. Okay, lending. How do loans work? If I have 1 Bitcoin, do I get 1 Bitcoin worth of a loan? Not for my product, not what we're building. Why? Because what if Bitcoin goes down a little bit? Then you have more in your loan than I have in collateral. So the way strikes will work is you'll deposit Bitcoin and we'll give you a portion of that as a loan. And we'll account for a certain amount of dip. And we will say, if Bitcoin dips to this number, you got to deposit more, or else I'm going to have to sell the Bitcoin you get. That's how it works. It's a collateralized loan. And so our expectation is we will never give you what the Bitcoin's worth at the time, because Bitcoin can move around a little bit. And so you'll get some portion of Bitcoin's worth as a loan. And if you want more of a loan, you just deposit more stuff. It should be pretty straightforward. If you're interested, you can Google this stuff. Pretty straightforward. Where will your Bitcoin need to be held to be eligible for the loan product? Self-custody, exchanges. Okay, this is a good question. And listen, think of it again, first principles. If you want me, let's say you want me to lend you $1 million, which I'd be more than willing to. You're giving me something to collateralize that loan. You're giving me something in exchange. I went golfing over the holidays, over Christmas, and I needed to rent clubs. They were loaning me clubs. And they said, we need your car keys in exchange, right? Because the collateral was, if I don't return the clubs, then I don't get my car. And it was a fair exchange because I intended on paying back the clubs. I intended on returning the clubs. So you have to give something to get the loan. I'm not going to just, this guy DM'd me on Twitter. Send me your account and routing number. I'll give you $1 million because I trust you. And so you deposit the Bitcoin to me. And if you're not comfortable with that, I don't take personal offense to it, but I'm not going to lend you $1 million. I'm not that stupid. So you deposit the Bitcoin and you get the loan. If you are convinced that there's another way to do that, you're wrong. I'm telling you right now, you're wrong. We plan at Strike to be lending out billions of dollars soon. Nobody's going to give that level of a loan without collateral to protect themselves, or else there will be no Strike soon. And this is important too, because there's been lots of products and companies that try and do this. One thing we're going to do at Strike, I'll tell you guys straight up, man to man, we're going to do it honestly ethically, transparently, in the right way. Okay? I will let you guys know exactly what I'm going to charge, how I'm going to do it, and how it works. Because it has to be done the right way, or else it's not going to work. So you'll get all of that information from me. I won't be shy about it. I'll come on the internet and answer any question you got. But no one's giving out $1 billion without collateral. The golf course doesn't give you the clubs without your car. All right. Next question. What time frame am I shooting for? Soon. This is not I don't know. I got to be careful, but this is not a next year thing. This is not even like a, next quarter thing. This is on the other side of the new year. We're really excited. So soonish, soon. Any idea of how Strike will determine the interest rate on the loan? Prime rate plus something? The rate on the loan has a lot to do with the access we have to the dollars. So, I can't get dollars at 0% right now because rates aren't zero. So it'll be some, SOFR rate, some rate plus something is right. But we think we're going to be some of the cheapest loans you've ever seen. That's, part of our goal, and doing it the right way and with the right people, having the right partnerships, the right product is, like I said, mentioning, bringing costs down, bringing the experience way up. If you've got an app where you can buy, sell, get your direct deposit, pay your bills, there's Lightning, there's an on-chain wallet, and really competitive lending. That's our goal. And we hope to be unbelievably competitive when it comes to pricing.
The answer is as low as possible.
Of course. But, you got a chat on a day like today, screws loose in chat. They're going to think low as possible is for free.
Not the Nostr chat.
Not the Nostr chat. Whatever. What do we call our chat? Our chat's like a combination of them all.
This is YouTube and X.
Nostr's not in this?
No, Nostr's not showing up on the screen. You have to look at it separately. You can look at it. You go to zap.stream in your browser, or if you use Nostr on iPhone or Amethyst on Android, they have it built in.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nostr. I didn't
know
that.
There's some apps have it built in, and then the rest use
Pablo's in here?
Browser. Yeah, I've been watching it the whole time.
All right, I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
You're good. That's where I got the questions from.
I'm learning.
Paying attention.
I'm learning. All right. A few more lending. Is the cash that comes from this loan created from thin air, like fractional reserve banking? Define thin air. Like I said, you're giving me Bitcoin. I'm giving you a loan against your Bitcoin. Listen, let me tell you guys what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to say, I want a loan against my Bitcoin because I want access to my wealth. I don't want to sell it. I have a job. I'm going to finance this appropriately. Of course, I'm going to make my loan payments. This is just the right thing to do. I want to be like Jack. Then you give me the Bitcoin. I give you a loan. You pay me back over whatever time you want. You could take a month, a day, a year. You could take 100 years. We're fine with that as long as you finance it in accordance to what we're expecting. That's how it works. So is it out of thin air? No. It requires a deposit. And no, I don't personally have the ability to print dollars. I go out and get these dollars for you guys. It's part of the product. It's part of the service that I'm selling you. So no, it is a fully collateralized loan. In fact, it's an over collateralized loan because I'm only going to give you a portion of what the Bitcoin's worth at the time. Would the comparison of Bitcoin backed loan be... Okay, basically, what type of loan is it? Is it a fixed term loan? Is this a margin product? We plan on doing all sorts of different products with time. We want to learn from you guys, but the goal will probably enter the market first with a fixed term. I'm talking too much, honestly. I really gotta watch it. So enough with the.
Yeah, we should no more like. It'll be released soon. When it's released, we could talk about it more.
Yeah. No more. Catching me off guard here. Okay. Odell, I can see how you're an expert at Bitcoin, Matt. How did you get so good at understanding financial markets? Oh, wait, don't answer that. Look at this guy.
Am I late?
It's a Christmas miracle.
You're right on time.
I was like, I saw that it says American HODL in the description. I was like, God damn it. I am not going to let Jack Mahlers be a liar to the people. I'm going to show up. Yeah.
No, I would have added it. How are you, buddy?
Good, man. Sorry, I had some family stuff going on, so I joined.
That's okay.
very
Apology
late.
accepted. That's more important.
Family's the most important.
It's true.
How was your Christmas?
It was good. It was really good.
Good.
You know, it's funny. Pete Rizzo just texted me about the Michael Saylor 100K party, and he was like, I'll see you for the 100K party. And I texted him. I was like, you mean more like the 92K party, like back like 2 weeks ago? 80K. And he was like, God damn, bro, your powers of prediction are amazing. You know, I was like, I know things, Pete. I know things.
Yeah, market looks fatigued.
Have you guys seen this? Like, I'm seeing a lot of bearish sentiment from people, and like by percentage, the numbers are not that low, but nominally the numbers are high. So people are like losing like 20 grand, and they're like, oh my God, I fucking freak out, right? But like as a percentage base, I checked and I was like, we're not even at a 20% correction. Like in Bitcoin terms, that's nothing, you know? So I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of bearishness based on just, I think the numbers are getting too high and it's breaking people's brains.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I struggle with putting myself in other people's shoes. I mean, I bought Bitcoin at $50. And I've been around for such a long time. I've seen these things. This doesn't surprise me for a second. If I were though upset at this, I think post FTX, it's been number go up literally. I don't think we've had many dips, literally, especially since the ETFs. I mean, we went from 20, 30K to 100. I mean, there was a painful 6-month stagnation of sideways, but sideways feels a lot different than there goes my net worth. So I think that this is a lot of folks. If you came here, I don't know, over the last 2 years now, because Sam scammed the world over 2 years ago. So if you came after that within the last 24 months, this is probably the first red candle where you're refreshing your portfolio balance and you're like, ouch, I got to close that tab on Zillow. Probably. That's kind of the only guess I have. Because I was telling Odell, the similarities to the 2016, 2017 cycle are so profound to me. People forget that Bcash and SegWit2x and UASF, that was in August. We didn't cross 3,000 until August. And we went from 3,000 to 20,000 in 5 months, in like 100-something days. So I don't expect this market to hit 200K in January. In fact, I'm very confident we're going to get weaker dollar from this administration fairly soon in 2025. So I'm very confident, big green candle in 2025. Do I have that level of confidence in the next 60 to 90 days? No. I think it's going to be the same as 2017. 100,000, big psychological number. This election was so emotionally exhausting. I think markets in America is very fatigued. I mean, Elon and Trump, everyone's fighting. I think people are emotionally exhausted. They're fatigued. The markets look like they're out of gas. I would not be surprised if we got some dip and if this thing chopped around until March, April, May, and you go from 150 to 900,000 in 6 months because Trump figured out the reserve and we figured out Putin has a position. That wouldn't surprise me. In fact, it kind of looks like what we're going to get.
Did you hear that, Matt? That means you're still another year away from 200K by conference day.
We were talking about this earlier that I'm watching the similarities with the 2016 cycle. Like it does feel very similar, but the SBR, the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, could change things. There could be, it could be a very interesting end of January, early February. And I would just say, look, this is why everyone thinks like, oh, I could have gotten into Bitcoin so much earlier. Why didn't I do it or whatever? So many people get washed out along the way, right? And leverage traders get wrecked in both directions. The whole way up is how it goes. So I'm not really surprised at the bearish sentiment. I think it's healthy. It's a free market. Free market naturally has these corrections and volatility. So that's what we see.
I think the mental model here is the market climbs a wall of worry, right? So like if this is your first Bitcoin bull run, like you maybe haven't experienced that, but like people are always panicking the whole way up. You know, people were panicking from 1K to 20K the entire time. and thinking that it had stalled out at multiple points along the way when we got to 2K, 3K, 4K. I remember there was a big 4K was a big barrier there for some reason. And then like it seemed like we couldn't get above 5. And then once we blew past like 8, it was like just straight to 20. So yeah, I mean, that can definitely happen in Bitcoin. Things are very weird and reflexive here. And I agree with Matt about the SPR. Like I think we get the SPR on, even within the first 100 days, it doesn't have to be the first day, but even within the first 100 days, that's going to be super bullish for this market.
But don't forget about all the FUD that we had in 2016. Like there was insane amount of FUD. Like I will never forget, like all the top influencers of that era were saying ETH is a safer trade. There's so much uncertainty in Bitcoin. Like we don't have any of that this time around.
Yeah, but well, hold on. Put yourself back a second because we're not even in 2017 yet. We're still in 2016 if we're comparing cycles. So we still need 48 more hours.
The FUD is coming.
Yeah, it's coming. Of course. What do you mean? Everyone's favorite.
Raoul Powell sold at 2,000. Remember that? And he was like, "This is the top 2,000," and then it 10x.
Yeah.
Never go poor taking profits.
Vinny Lingham sold at like 900. He was like, "This is the top." Like,
Raoul, Vinny, Voorhees.
I remember that.
A lot of people have gone poor taking profits, haven't they? Quite a few.
What people don't realize is it's actually good advice to take profits, but when you take profits, it's selling dollars for Bitcoin. It's the opposite direction.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's the same. At the time, for people that weren't there, 2017, the run was the market got a lot of confidence and clarity that Bitcoin was going to work. That's how big that cycle was. That was the only time holding Bitcoin. I was like, shit, my savings might go to zero. I was running a code patch from some random internet guy named Shaolin Fry. I had put my whole net worth on running a Raspberry Pi from some guy named Shaolin Fry. That's where we were at. But the market got the clarity, and Bitcoin is what we thought it was. And then it went 5 to 10x in like 100 days. Similar here. Is Bitcoin capable of, nation state stacking? Is that where we are? Is the debt levels and the deficit levels in America really that bad? I almost think we're entering an era where the Treasury matters less than the Department of Defense. I've heard Luke Gromen talk about that now, but you're entering an era where it feels like America's like, listen, the bond market's starting to get a little skittish, and it feels like Wall Street's like, hey, you guys aren't going to have me in the loss in real terms, right? We're the bond market, we're Wall Street, and it feels like the Fed and the Treasury and the government's like, this is about national defense. Fuck your portfolio. Right. Go call Larry Fink, and he got the lowdown. So anyway, I think that the market needs that clarity. Is it going to get it on Trump's inauguration? I think that sounds to me like Bitcoin Twitter hope. I know we all love BPI. I don't think on his inauguration that we're going to get that clarity. When's the market going to get that clarity? Would it shock me if it came April, May, June, July? And then we go from 125, 150, 200, and we 3-4x and blow up to gold's levels. That's my sort of expectation, I think. And Kalkanis, you're too early on the FUD call. Kalkanis is everyone's favorite influencer, right? So he's warming up. It's like layup lines. I think in Q1, Bitcoin goes to 80. You're going to get all sorts of sailors. You're going to get margin called, right?
So many people are expecting a day one pump that we will probably dump.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, come on, how long have you been around?
Just stay humble. I'm going to stay humble and stack sats about it. But on the Kalakanis call, what about this call? By the end of this cycle, this show will have more listeners than All In.
That's not bad. How many listeners do they get?
We're going to have
numbers. More. You guys show up and join the stream last week, and we had some massive numbers.
Why is Kalakanis still on that show? You know what I mean?
He's an important counter to them, even though everyone hates him.
Yeah, he's when pretty girls keep a fat girl around. That's who he is. He makes he makes them look intellectually like geniuses, So that's why they keep him around.
That's a very accurate take.
Maybe we need to get a Jason.
By the way, I would say that just to button this up too, I would say that I've seen a lot of I'm not going to name names here, but I've seen a lot of people who feel very sidelined to me. Like these are guys who've been around for a long time, and for some reason it kind of feels like they don't have as much Bitcoin as they should. And so some of these bear calls are like them trying to be like, please God, don't let this market run away on me. Yep. That's one thing. And then the other thing is new people who are leveraging themselves up, especially on shit like MSTR, and then they're, you know, also like they can't hold the position because it's just too volatile. And you know that leverage is going to take you to zero. And it's like, if you do understand, you know, the Bitcoin like thesis here, blowing up on the 1 yard line is just not acceptable, because you know you're going to lose it all right before it, you know, 100x's. Like there's still 100x left to go on Bitcoin. You know?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think people understand, at least the new ones. These dips are great. Listen, people always ask, why is Bitcoin going down? Well, it's because more people are interested in selling it than buying it. That's why. And so if you think rationally from how markets are conducted and how they work and perform, there are new buyers now at these prices. These people that are buying now are going to be far less interested at selling at 100K again than the guy that bought at $100 that's taking profit to buy his dream house. So when you get dips and you recycle in new entrants, you're building a lot stronger base, a lot stronger market participants than those that, to HODL's point, can't handle leverage, don't understand it, misunderstood MSTR, or whatever the case is. So dips are great. If you woke up tomorrow and Bitcoin was $1 million, it wouldn't be there for long. It'd come right back down. If you can build stronger bases and recycle in market participants, it's always a good thing, and it's an opportunity to buy more. So everyone's got to relax. If you're hurt by this, it says more about you than Bitcoin. Francis, sit in the shower and think about that.
Francis Pouliot had a great line, which I always think about, and he says that people think leverage is a time machine to being an OG, and it's not. You know? That's such a good line. I think about that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, proof of work, both in the protocol and in real life. All right. Well, we were doing some Q&A. Let me find a HODL question.
Go
on. Go ahead. No, I would never cut you off, buddy. Go for it.
No, I mean, I saw a good question, but if you have one, take it.
I was going to ask you both. Someone asked, can you dunk on Ethereum, please? The state of Ethereum looks like a mess. I need a good dunk.
It feels like punching down, you know, like just, should we really bully the kids that ride the short bus to school? That's not like moral of us to do, is it? I don't know. You know, Ethereum is down so bad. It's ridiculous.
It's terrible. But I've always considered Ethereum the pulse and the heartbeat of shitcoins. And so for me, every cycle, Odell and I were talking about this earlier. Every cycle, it's the closest thing to deja vu I've ever seen. I lived through the same things. Super cycle, altcoins are dead, and it never happens. But I do look at Ethereum as a proxy to altcoins, and maybe that's not the case anymore. Maybe we've been around long enough where I now need to open a Solana chart, but it looks like it's dead. And it doesn't need to be zero. It just doesn't look like it has any life. And so I'm kind of taking that as proxy to what I think is a cycle where Bitcoin is the main character, which for those around, it hasn't always been the case.
Dude, my favorite, I saw this tweet. I saw this tweet the other day that said, if Bitcoin is a digital good, does that make Ethereum a digital bad?
Nailed it.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
No. Go ahead. We got to let you talk, man. That's on me.
Ethereum's a shitcoin. It's trending to zero in Bitcoin terms. So are all the other shitcoins. So is your favorite piece of real estate. So is your favorite stock. Everything's trending to zero in terms of Bitcoin. You could either believe me now or you can believe me in 5 years or 10 years, but eventually you'll realize it. I saw a question in the chat that I'm curious on your two opinions on, because this is a question that comes up every cycle and I think is an important topic for new corners specifically. What's your opinion on hash rate versus price?
Like, are we saying which one follows which?
Just hash rate versus price. What is the comparison there? How do they affect each other? How do you think about it?
It's a good question. Think about that for a second.
What's your answer, Odell, or do you want me to go?
I think of hash rate. I don't ever prescribe to like hash rate leads price or price leads hash rate. The way I think of hash rate is period the most free market we've ever seen in the world, and is actually probably could be considered the true price. And why do I say that? I say that because, first of all, you can access it without permission. All you have to do is plug in a miner to a power source, and you're able to mine. And second of all, it's impossible to fake. You cannot fake hash rate. You have to actually expend energy to contribute to the hash rate. So I think of it as a price indicator, and I think of it basically as the price measured in energy that cannot be faked, a true free market.
I generally agree with that. I think it's a little bit more complicated. I think when people get confused as to why we see some dumps post-halving, it's the question on the internet is, who could possibly be selling? Like, I watch every Michael Saylor interview. Who could be selling? And the reality is there's a lot of distressed miners out there. When you go through an inventory reduction of 50%, so like here in Chicago in the 88 drought, where like there wasn't enough rain for all the crops, there was inventory reduction for a lot of the commodities we consumed, but it wasn't 50%. It was like, inventory reduction of corn was maybe like 8%, 9%. It wasn't 50. So a 50% inventory reduction, you're going to blow out some miners. And so I think there's always a lot of distressed sellers. So the mining market in hash rate is always a little interesting to me. It's always a little bit complicated, but on net, I've always said I would never, ever, ever, ever want to be in the business that is an open bid for energy, ever. I do not want to compete with the human race for who can harness energy the most. I mean, you got to be fucking kidding me. I'm a guy sitting in an empty closet. On what planet am I ever going to win that? What if Putin decides he wants to play? Well, I lose. Fuck that game. I don't want to play that game. So, yeah, no. Do I think that hash rate is probably going to lead price? Yeah. If there's a bullish sentiment on Bitcoin and people have excess energy lying around, plug it in. So, yeah, anyway, I agree on that. It's complicated, though.
I was thinking through it just now, and I think it's kind of like the concept that Plan B popularized within the Bitcoin community of co-integration, like between hash rate and price, where it's like the drunk walking the dog. Like they're not perfectly correlative, but they're co-integrated with each other. So if you think about like a drunk and a dog stumbling home together and they're connected by a leash, like that's kind of the co-integration analogy. I also agree with Jack about, there's something that I can't quite puzzle out, but things that are closer, the closer you are to energy, the more volatile your industry, it's like I was watching this new show Landman with my wife last night, and it's about like Billy Bob Thornton's like a Texas oil man. Great fucking show if you haven't seen it yet. But in the show, he's like talking about like, oil was at 140 a barrel and we were just like living life and blah, blah, blah. And then it crashed to $30 a barrel and we lost everything or whatever. And I was like, this is Bitcoin. This is exactly like Bitcoin. So it's like, and Bitcoin is energy currency. So maybe like some sort of our intrinsic volatility in Bitcoin comes from our relationship to energy. I can't fully work it out though.
Of course. No, energy is the currency of the universe. And it's the one thing you can't print, you can't manipulate. So, the direct opposite, the antithesis of fiat currency and central planning is energy, is Bitcoin, is Mother Nature. So you're going to find yourself in volatility. To me, is the antithesis in the opposition of fiat, right? If you want zero vol, zero returns, you own dollars. If you want more returns and more vol, you can own the S&P 500, I guess. But what's biggest vol, biggest returns is Bitcoin. Why? Because to your point, it's a proxy. Energy is the base layer of money, period.
Yep.
And so like, before money and barter, the currency we use in barter is just energy. It's just, time and energy. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. But, Bitcoin is a monetary unit that is directly governed by the laws of Mother Nature. And, energy is the currency of the universe as we know it. So I think that's exactly why. And yeah, I've never understood why anyone would be excited to get into mining. And I have a lot of friends in mining and they're great people, but you want to be in an open competition to whoever can harness the currency of the universe and energy. Fuck off. I'm going to sell people Bitcoin and watch the Bears. Get the fuck
I don't
out of
want to. I don't want to name the companies, but there was an incident like I don't know, like 8 months ago or something, where two miners down in Texas showed up and had an armed standoff with each other. You remember that?
Yeah.
Like, it's a fucking gangster industry, dude. I wouldn't want to be in it either.
Well, you just, yeah, like what if the U.S. military decides they want to be miners?
Yeah.
Um, well, you're out of business immediately. So, anyway, let's see what other good questions. There's a ton of strike related questions, which is not fun for you guys. HODL, I got a question for you for some topics that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, hit me.
What do you make of Bitcoin lending? Like, you think it's gonna be a big market, big deal?
I'm super weary of it, obviously, because of the 2021 cycle. I think that Bitcoin yield is the most taboo topic in Bitcoin.
Oh no, like collateralized loans.
Right, totally. And I think it's taboo for good reason. That said, I think that lending, collateralized loans, different types of Bitcoin yield, in theory, are all perfectly fine and acceptable, but the devil is in the details with all of these products. And like none of the products that have been on the market to me have been very interesting thus far, because the interest rates are dog shit because they can't get access to the capital that they need, et cetera. And so I think from the Bitcoin side, it's going to be difficult to compete with when the ETFs go like kind, because when the ETFs go like kind, you can put your Bitcoin into the ETF without generating a capital gain event. And then you'll be able to margin against that ETF structure, and you'll have very competitive rates. And so, as you know, I don't know, can Bitcoin like native loans, collateralized loans compete with that? That's going to be tricky. Now there's trade-offs with the ETF product, right? Because you're obviously not holding your keys in self-custody, and we have these amazing technologies in Bitcoin that allow us to do collaborative custody for these loans. So I don't know, is that important though when you're taking a collateralized loan? I don't know, it's tricky for me to parse it out. I'll tell you this, for me personally, I just have felt very sketched out by these products in the past. And I love the guys that run like Unchained Capital and whatever, but I just never wanted to use those products myself. And luckily they weren't available in my state. There was some sort of weird regulation there. So like it prevented me from doing a lot of that. But I had friends who, like, when March 12th happened, I had people in Bitcoin calling me, who got margin called, and they were asking me to borrow ridiculous amounts of Bitcoin, like amounts of Bitcoin that I don't have. They were like, they were like 8 Bitcoin. I was like, I only have 6.15 Bitcoin, bro. But it was just like, I don't know, man. It's very tricky. I think that it can be done, but the needle has to be thread appropriately, and the rates have to be market competitive and market clearing. That's what I'd say.
Were you going to say something, Matt?
Just for context for the chat, because we do have a lot of new people here. March 12th, he's referring to March 12th, 2020, when we fell from $10,000 to $3,500 in 24 hours. And a lot of people got liquidated. And Unchained specifically, which is basically the only lender that survived the 2021 crisis whole without any loan losses, changed the way that they configure the loans after that. They learned a lot, and so they basically increased the reserve requirement. So when Jack was talking earlier about why these things are over-collateralized and why they're so over-collateralized, if you're familiar with real estate loans are over-collateralized. So when you borrow against like a $7 million building, you're getting like $5 million, $4 million out of it. With Bitcoin, because it's so volatile, it's more volatile than real estate, that reserve requirement is usually even higher. And a lot of those lessons were learned in March 12th, 2020, the day that will live in infamy, that wrecked a lot of fucking people.
Yeah. Dude. Yeah, and it was a topic because Stone Ridge shareholder letter came out, annual letter from Ross, and he mentioned it. And I've already had to cut myself off because I'm working on something too. Could be with Ross, could not. But I think the product, I want the product because I have to sell Bitcoin. The point for me is you go from a network that's worth $0 to $2 trillion. That's $2 trillion worth of new wealth created for those in the network. And right now, in order for me to access my wealth, I have to sell Bitcoin. So it's how can you unlock the wealth that's being created without creating the sell pressure and the tax liability. If someone can do it and bring that product to market, and so someone like Ross Stevens, that excites me, because to your point, and that's the story through Bitcoin too, is you've got a bunch of Y Combinator, Silicon Valley clowns that are supposed to be giving us liquidity in this asset, and then Larry Fink shows up, and then Saylor shows up, and it's okay, the adults are here, and it's kind of similar in every facet. Is figuring out this, to HODL's point, is very difficult. It's professional work. I mean, managing risk is not learning how to code. You cannot go to a boot camp and launch a lending product. People have tried, but managing a risk book and ordering margin calls, getting large pools of liquidity, that's an adult's job. So the fact that Ross Stevens is working on it and he's excited about it is exciting to me. I think if you can create a market of people that want access to their Bitcoin wealth without forcing them to sell, that's a big deal.
It's a great idea in theory. And like I said, like devil's in the details.
We'll see.
It's all about execution.
And then my last one for you, because I'm curious, what do you make of all the El Salvador hoopla about their IMF loan?
Oh, yeah. I mean, did they bend the knee, or are they?
Yeah.
I mean, did they bend the knee, or are they like playing the long game? And like, I think they're playing the long game, and I think they needed that loan. And I don't fault them for it. They're a small, poor country that's resource poor, so they have to do what they have to do in order to provide for their citizens and continue to beautify their society. So I know that a lot of Bitcoiners, I saw some talk about people being like, oh, they got rugged. If you're a Bitcoiner, you went down there, you got rugged or whatever. And it's like, I guess from a certain perspective, but, this is a nascent nation that's being built at the moment. And so I don't think that you can expect everything to be perfect,
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of compromises along the way.
Yeah. And I mean, I said it earlier, but as evidence of the fact that El Salvador listened to me on a lot of things, but on some things they didn't. They asked, do you think we should force everyone to use Bitcoin? I said, no, it sounds like a terrible idea. They did it anyway. And do you think we should build our own wallet? I said, no, that's the worst idea. And they did it anyway. So the fact that those are the two things that they're compromising on with the IMF, and in exchange they get $1 billion, that's the sweetest deal of all time, because those were two of the things that I would have removed with or without the IMF.
Totally. I'm also not sure about like the details of the IMF specific loan. I saw some people being like, wouldn't it be hilarious if they took it and put it into Bitcoin? That would be funny. But, the truth is, like, I'm sure that the loan terms say that they can't do that. But if you have the loan and you're able to use it for critical infrastructure here or there, well, then obviously it frees up a lot of your capital on the Bitcoin side, and you can continue stacking for the people of El Salvador. One of the things I do love about Bukele is when he posts those screenshots of his gains. Because dude, he's up like $350 million or something, and like that's a lot of money in El Salvador, man. That goes a really long way. So I'm bullish on El Salvador for the people of El Salvador, but as a non-El Salvadorian, I'm sort of an American xenophobe myself. Like, I really concern myself only with America. I support you.
Can't blame you for that.
Yeah, wish the best for you guys, but I'm all about America.
Okay, this question. This shows just how many new entrants we got and the type of crowd we're talking to sometimes. HODL and Odell, what's your take on other cryptos? How would you compare other cryptos versus Bitcoin? If I had to convince my friends to only buy Bitcoin, can you help me?
Well, we already answered this, but just tell them that they will be poorer if they do it, and they will probably not listen to you. And then after they become poorer as a result, then they will listen to you. It's a time thing. It takes some time. I will say, just to cover my ass here, you should consider that gambling, while buying Bitcoin and holding it long term is saving, right? Yeah. So sometimes in the short term, you might be a successful gambler and your returns might look great. What usually happens is people hold it too long, they get wrecked, and then they have less Bitcoin for it. So when I think about Bitcoin versus anything else, whether that's shitcoins or Apple stock or buying a house, investment real estate, buying an Airbnb to try and get quote unquote cash flow, it's all trending to zero in Bitcoin terms. You're just better off staying home on stacking sats and holding Bitcoin long term.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Matt said. And I do think that if you're going to trade shitcoins, I'm past the point of my journey where I'm going to wag my finger at you for that. Like, you can do whatever you want. You're a free man. Do what you want to do. If you're going to do it, just know it's a really difficult thing to do. when you go into these spaces and you hear shitcoin people talk, you hear a lot of confusion. You know, like I would say 99% of the people are like deeply confused. And then you hear one guy who's not confused. That guy's the shark. He's eating everybody's money. You got to be scared of that guy. And if you don't know who the sucker at the table is, it's you, man. And like, I think if you are going to attempt to trade these things, you need to do so in Bitcoin terms. You need to have a Bitcoin lens. Bitcoin should be your unit of account. And you should basically say to yourself, like, am I doing well against Bitcoin, right? So like the thing Matt is talking about, everything trending to zero, you need to know if you're outperforming Bitcoin's hurdle rate. And if you're not outperforming Bitcoin's hurdle rate, then you're getting totally wrecked. And even if you are making money, you know, gains in US dollars. I was talking to a guy last cycle, 2021, who had held on to NEM, which was like supposed to be like the Chinese Ethereum or something. And he was all happy because he was up like 3x. And I was like, dude, Bitcoin is up 12x during that time period. You lost out on, you know, like 9x, bro. Like your lens for how you're viewing it's money illusion. It's like have you ever seen this video? I love this video. There's a video of a raccoon. Raccoons wash all their food. And so there's this video of a raccoon that somebody gives cotton candy to, and he tries to wash it and it just dissolves in front of him. And he's like, oh my, where's my cotton candy? That's what happens when you attempt to trade shitcoins in order to make more Bitcoin. You end up with less Bitcoin. 99.9% of the best traders in the world, guys who've been here for 10 years, they end up with less Bitcoin. So if you think to yourself, hey, I'm going to come in fresh off rip 2025 and just crush it. They never seen anybody like me before. No, you're about to get so destroyed, dude. But then again, go ahead and do it because it's good entertainment for the rest of us.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the way I've been putting it recently is Bitcoin's the only money in crypto. And I mean that genuinely. I think all these other things are technologies. They're not competing to be the neutral reserve currency for the world and the place for you to put your time and energy and your effort and your labor. So treat it as money. If you're looking to save and build, you know, a better tomorrow for yourself, I would use Bitcoin for that. But for example, Bitcoin's not the only thing I own. Literally, I own this shirt. Why? I bought the shirt because I can't go outside. I got a rehearsal for the wedding I'm in tomorrow. I can't show up naked. So I bought this shirt because I need to wear it. I own this house I'm sitting in because I need to sleep somewhere at night. So why would you own a shitcoin? Ask yourself that question and be honest with yourself. But Bitcoin's the only money. Ethereum's not money. And that's when people say, you know, why isn't Ethereum going up? Why is Bitcoin going up? Well, the opportunity size for a world reserve currency is, like I said, $400 to $500 trillion. The opportunity size for you guys to decentralize YouTube or something is like maybe $100 million. It's just a smaller idea. It's a smaller opportunity. So, you know, I own a shirt to wear it. I bought a steak to eat it. I own my home to sleep in it. I own my Bitcoin for my money. Ask yourself why you would own a shitcoin. I guarantee you can't come up with a good answer unless, to their point, you want to gamble.
Well, the only answer is because you're looking to sell it to a greater fool. That's the answer, right? And if you don't have that answer and you say to yourself, oh, it's because of the technology, bro, and it's because of the Tangle. IOTA's the Tangle. You ever heard of that? It's going to do things. No, it's not. No, you're lying to yourself because you don't want to admit that you're a bad person who's looking for suckers to dump your bullshit on. And just admit that, because the people who are doing well in these markets, they do admit that to themselves. And they say, oh, look, a new sucker I can dump my shit on when they see you. Yeah.
Yep. All right, boys. Is next year's price action going to be driven by institutions, by nation states, by ETFs? Who?
I mean, all the above, right? Yeah.
Do you think Bitcoin's price is going to pop off on January 1st on the inauguration? When is it going to move?
The inauguration is not January 1st, first of all. And
Right.
second of all, this is exactly what we were talking about earlier. Everyone's expecting a day one pump, so we'll probably dump. But directionally, this year should be quite a big year for us. So like if you just maintain your position and accumulate long term, you should be in very good position.
A wise man
this time
once
next
told me
year.
to stay humble and stack sats. Hopefully I get to meet
There you
that
go.
guy someday.
One day.
Is the 4-year cycle broken? If not, what's your best guess if you had to guess?
It's literally matched up with the 2016 cycle so far. So maybe it breaks, but it has to break first before people claim that it's broken. Like if you look at the historical cycles, they're all relatively close to each other in terms of patterning. They have differences. Obviously, there's different macro elements here. But more or less, the 4-year cycle has maintained up until this point. I would just assume it's going to maintain until it breaks. And specifically, assumption-wise, is you have to assume the 80% drawdown. Not in terms of I'll wait and buy when it draws down 80%, because it might not. But when you're buying it, assume that it's going to fall by 80%, just so you don't get fucking wrecked when it likely does.
Yeah, the baseline assumption here is that the 4-year cycle is intact until we see that it's no longer intact, and it can break at any time. So
this is like rocket science. It's very complicated stuff.
Yeah, I never understand when people get offended by it might drop 80%, because to me that implies how high it's going to go, not how far down it's going to go. If you were to tell me in 2016, Bitcoin was like $950. It wasn't going to drop 80% from that price. But if you were to say we're going to drop 80% from 20,000, I'd be like, probably. Jesus Christ, we're going to 20x in 12 months. So yeah, when they say it's going to drop 80%, probably from $1 million it might. Not from 100K though, to be clear.
Yeah.
I'll just say that I've been in 3 or 4 cycles, and at the top, I've always thought hyper Bitcoinization was upon us. So you will also probably think that is the normal thing. Like you will be absolutely positive we are not going to drop 80% right before we drop 80%. Just heads up.
Well, that's what's funny too, because if you're thinking now, hey, we might go into the 80s, like that's because you're being reasonable still. You won't be reasonable later. Like I'm saying with Matt, when in 2017 when we went to 20K, I was like, this is it. Hyper Bitcoinization is upon us. In 2021 when we went to 69K, I was like, this is it. Hyper Bitcoinization is upon us. This year, if we go to 700, 600, whatever, I'm going to be like, this is it. I can't stop myself.
There's also people don't appreciate it's the age old, with more demand comes more supply, and everything that you can have in your life except for Bitcoin and your time. And so what people don't appreciate often is new supply in Bitcoin comes from a higher price. You can find more supply, but you got to go up and bid it to a higher price to go get it. And so if you put Bitcoin at $1 million, Bitcoin is going to be, for, the analogy here, it's going to become very inflationary. There's going to be Bitcoin coming out of cold storage left and right. And so all of a sudden, the amount of natural sellers in the market is going to go from 0 to everyone you've ever met, because people are going to want to own professional sports teams and a mansion. So with the price hikes, eventually you find and unlock new supply. And at one point that was $20,000 mark. At another point, it was $70,000. Back in the first, bull run I've ever seen it was $1,300. So this one, we'll see at what price do you unlock a level of supply that the market can't sustain. And it'll be a good question, because if nation states are buying, maybe they can sustain a lot more selling pressure than we're used to, and Bitcoin hits 1 million. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe Bitcoin hits 350K. I don't know the answer. It's a lot higher than here, though. But people often forget that is we can't print Bitcoin for those that want it. For those that want it, they got to go up and find the supply at a higher price.
Somebody asked us, Thomas asked us if we were this bullish going into the year in 2020 and 2016, like at the end of 2020 and the end of 2016. For me, the answer is emphatically yes. I was exactly this bullish. I was starting to get, I wouldn't call it euphoric, but like pre-euphoric. And that always happens to me. And I was also, a tell for me is I was getting irritated by everybody. And I'm irritated by everybody right now, Yep. I don't know what it is. It's just like in a bull market, everything is worse except for the price. And in a bear market, everything is better in terms of Bitcoin community and culture, except for the price.
That's great. I agree with that. Okay. What self-custody? What do you guys recommend? Everyone's always asking.
I think me and Matt are both on the same page with we like the BitKey for noobs, right?
If you're in the YouTube chat, you should get the BitKey, and if you're in the Nostr chat, you should get the cold card.
That's a good answer, honestly.
That's
the BitKey looks like this. I got one right here.
It's a great product.
Great little device. It makes multi-sig easy. It's pretty secure. There's some trust trade-offs and stuff that you probably won't be comfortable with as you get further into Bitcoin. But in the early days, great.
The BitKey is made by Block, and they basically made it to be as easy as possible to self-custody your Bitcoin. So when you self-custody your Bitcoin, you're not trusting a third party to hold your Bitcoin for you, which is an absolute must. As we saw last cycle, if you trust someone else to hold your Bitcoin for you, you will likely get wrecked. So you want to hold your long-term savings offline in self-custody. BitKey makes it really easy. It's almost impossible to lose your Bitcoin. And where BitKey falls is in terms of like theft scenarios, in terms of like, farther down the threat model about people robbing you or people like coming into your house with like a gun or something because like you're a known public Bitcoin or something along those lines. I think it's important to realize that the overwhelming majority of people lose Bitcoin because they like fuck something up or it's lost rather than theft. And BitKey just makes that really hard. So I would dip your toe in with BitKey. It's strictly better than using a custodian in terms of holding your Bitcoin. And then over time, improve your setup. And the hardware that I really like for that is something called a cold card, which makes it's a very powerful device that's a little bit more difficult to use, but gives you it's like a little Fort Knox in a card format, which is awesome.
I agree with Matt, and I also think that further down the line, you're going to want to look into multi-vendor, multi-sig, geographically distributed. But that's something for when you're very, very serious about what's going on here, and there's a lot of resources for that.
Yep. This is addressed specifically to Matt Odell. PayJoin, Bull Bitcoin, came out and support PayJoin. Thoughts on PayJoin? Matt, as an investor in Strike, you ever going to make me support PayJoin?
This is massive. Do you not remember me telling you that I want this?
I do remember.
We talked to our head of engineering. Like, conversations have been had about it.
Yep.
I mean, I think it'd be awesome. I think not only does it benefit privacy for the user, it just makes transactions cheaper.
Yep.
So at Strike, it's a huge priority to have the most efficient, cheapest, best transaction flow in terms of deposits and withdrawals. PayJoin accomplishes that in a big way in terms of efficiency. You can effectively batch many users' transactions on both the deposit and the withdrawal side using it in a more effective way than just a simple batch Bitcoin transaction.
Yep.
And then we get these additional knock-on privacy benefits. So huge shout out to Bull Bitcoin. They're mainly based in Canada. They've also added support in Costa Rica and France recently. Historically, they've always been kind of first movers in terms of Bitcoin-focused innovation. They're a self-custody only operation, so it's great to see them as a first mover here. And I hope to see more services adopted. I think Strike could play a massive role here in terms of adopting it as well.
Yeah, we plan to. And Francis is the best. The company's run by a great guy and someone that's been around for a long time.
Very good Bitcoiners, everybody over there.
Yeah. I see a lot of people asking about BitKey. We are going to integrate with BitKey. I know that we're working on it. I actually don't know much more. Some really smart people that work at Strike are working on it. So soon.
To be clear, you can today get a BitKey from Best Buy or Amazon and just simply send from Strike into your BitKey. What Jack is talking about is within the BitKey app, they have some services that are like one-click connected, and ideally, Strike will be one of those partners pretty soon.
We'll get there. Will MicroStrategy get into the S&P 500 next year? What's your prediction?
So, QQQ inclusion was a little more obvious than the S&P 500 inclusion. The S&P 500 inclusion has more criteria. It's sort of a high bar. The equivalent here would be like owning an NBA team versus owning an NFL team. It's much easier to own an MLB or an NBA team than it is to own an NFL team. When you're in the NFL, you're American royalty. You've been minted. Being in the S&P 500 is a lot like that. There's a lot of earnings criteria that go into it. And so it's less likely to occur than the NASDAQ inclusion was. But the odds are still probably in the 30 to 50% range that it gets included sometime next year, because MicroStrategy is going to move to FASB fair value accounting for their Bitcoin, and their Bitcoin appreciation, the appreciation on their Bitcoin assets under management will be treated as earnings. And so they're going to be able to show those earnings, and that will lead to S&P 500 inclusion at some point in the future, if not next year.
Yeah, I would say things are beyond your wildest dreams in a bull market. wildest dreams. How good you think it can get, it's going to be even better.
Yep.
In a bear market, it's the same. You've never had a nightmare as bad as what real life is going to be like. You're like, yeah, I know Bitcoin was going to dip and I knew the Fed was going to raise rates, but that curly haired fuck didn't actually steal $10 billion from the public, did he? No, yeah, he did. And his parents are donors and there's all, yeah, no, and that company was going to fail and your cousin, and no, it gets worse than you could have ever dreamed. But bull markets are the opposite. It gets better. I'll tell you guys, firsthand experience. Like, man, I'm starting a company and I'm excited. We're going to be in the bull market. Did I think that I was going to help a country make Bitcoin legal tender? No, the fuck out of here. But so I would not be shocked if Saylor changes his accounting and Bitcoin goes from 100 to 200K and he's out earning every company on the world by orders of magnitude. If people toss him in the S&P 500, it's very possible. Don't count anything out in a bull market. You will be surprised.
Last bull market, I was like drunk in Miami next to a yacht, drinking rum out of a coconut, just fucking slapping Matt on the back, being like, we did it, but we're masters of the universe, baby. And then in the bear market, I was like pulled over on the side of the road in Barstow, like barfing out of my car because, well, I had a hangover, but also the price went to 15K and I was like, I literally purged. I like just vomited it up. And then I cried a little and I listened to Shania Twain on the way home. And Celine Dion, and it was sad, you know.
Yeah, I think that there's a really profound insight in this, in that Bitcoin, I know you want to talk, Matt, Bitcoin is the most free market that any of us can practically have access to, and it gives you a very authentic relationship to the world, wherein anything else, whether it's your university, your education, your Chase account, there are central banks and central parties that are central planning and making decisions for you. They're stripping the volatility out of your life so that when you get exposed to it, I'm on the carnivore diet right now. I had some drinks on Saturday with some friends and I was puking all yesterday because my body was not there. My body was like, what the fuck was that? You've been eating ribeyes and salt and water for 30 days. What the fuck was that poison? And it's very similar type of reaction when Bitcoin gives you there, you know, entropy is natural in the universe. Volatility is natural. Volatility is life. And when you have a relationship, you want to see how bad the world can actually get without anyone interfering and getting in the way and protecting you like you're a little child. That's what it feels like to be in a Bitcoin bear market. It feels like your life is at risk and the soul's being sucked out of you and everything's unfair. But the reality is that's actually how the world works, is that if you weren't protected constantly by central planners and central banks and currency manipulators, and same thing with the bull market, is life is beautiful and love is real and the world is your oyster and anything is possible. And you really get to experience that in Bitcoin when you're part of a bull market. You're like, you know, I'm capable of better and I can have an amazing life. So I in that way, I think Bitcoin's pure humanity in that way. And it's just a little startling for people because your life so far, if you went to a private school and then you enrolled at the University of Michigan and you've got your 401k, you don't know what entropy and volatility is. No fucking chance, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
I agree with everything you guys said. It was very deep. I just wanted, someone was attacking my character in the live chat, and I never pull away from attacks. I like to face them head on. Someone accused me of recommending Cold Card because of a financial incentive. The financial incentive being that 1031 is the largest investor in Cold Card, the only external investor in Cold Card besides the two founders. They've bootstrapped the whole company. They were profitable. They didn't even really need us, but they really like what we were doing and they wanted to be a part of the 1031 family. We're also the largest investor in Strike, and I very loudly recommend both Strike and Cold Card. And why do I do that? I don't do that because I have a financial incentive. I do that because they are simply the best options for people, and we would not invest in worse options. It's the opposite direction that it happens. And I understand, like, it comes with a level of trust. Okay, fine, you can accuse me of that, and I respect that. You can say whatever the hell you want to say. But I was recommending Cold Card and Strike before we invested. I think there's a substantial record for that. I think these kind of recommendations are a very sacred thing. You're talking about people and their money. And I will never make a recommendation based on financial incentive. I will make a recommendation between how I actually believe, based on my own research on how things stand. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people in the space that don't do that. There's a lot of people in the space that will get, $30,000 from some second-rate hardware wallet manufacturer, and then they'll start recommending it. And then the last piece on all of this is I have absolutely zero financial motivation to recommend BitKey. I just think it's a fucking fantastic product. And if they were a private company and you couldn't just buy block on the stock market, 1031 might invest in them. But BitKey is just a product that I've been waiting for forever. I've onboarded so many people to self-custody, and then they wait 4 years, 5 years, and they call me in a fucking panic. And BitKey just takes away that level of panic for that type of user. And it's a great way to get in at the ground floor of self-custody.
Come in. You guys want
That's
to
my
be
rant.
meeting, ladies?
Yeah.
Come say hi to the people. We've got
pay them in
7,700
Bitcoin?
people live. Oh, nervous. That was Peaches. Yeah. Goodbye. Happy New Year. I appreciate it.
Peaches, come over here, girl.
Everyone wants to say hi. A quick hi. It's all about what's on the inside, not the outside. Peaches holds it down. Holds the empty. This room is known.
Does Peaches own Bitcoin?
Hello, guys. How are you? Happy holiday.
What
Likewise.
do you think
Merry Christmas.
What do you think about Jack working out of a women's shoe closet? What do you think about Jack working out of a women's shoe closet? Is it a little weird to you?
I didn't say nothing. It's okay. Let him just be him.
That's what you need in your life. Support. Happy New Year. Give me a hug. Thank you.
Your clothes like that out the bag. It's gonna take an hour for them to dry.
My clothes will be dry in an hour. Thank you.
I hope you're giving her a Bitcoin Christmas present.
Yeah, always. What do you think? I'm an asshole?
Love it.
All right, I got a few more questions, and then I gotta go to this wedding rehearsal. Block space, gentlemen. Block space, changes to the protocol. Isn't Bitcoin going to be unaffordable to use? We can have the world's wealth in it, but it can't move. We'll start with Odell. What's your opinion on soft fork proposals? How much should we be worried about the future of Bitcoin and its scalability?
Bitcoin is Bitcoin operates under rough consensus situation. It's a network that's not centrally controlled. There's no single leader. And as a result, that means that any kind of significant changes, there has to be real momentum and real pressure for that to happen. So anyone who's making an argument that we need to see a change to Bitcoin based on scarce block space is incredibly scarce. And it costs money to get into a Bitcoin block. But the truth of the matter is, there is just not as much activity as you'd expect at this level of Bitcoin price. If you want to measure Bitcoin adoption and price, that's one way. If you want to measure Bitcoin adoption and block space usage, it's quite low. Right now, you can send freedom money without anybody's permission for very little money, almost the lowest fee rate possible, which is 1 cent per byte. So what I would like to see and what I expect to see is Bitcoin transaction usage will increase. That is a true free market, people paying what they think it's worth to send Bitcoin and receive Bitcoin. Well, the sender is the one who pays, but implicitly the receiver is also kind of dictating what that price is. And we will see sustained high fees for a long period of time. At that point, when we start to see sustained high fees, maybe there'll be pressure to make certain changes to reduce that fee burden or to quote unquote scale Bitcoin in a bigger way. But that question is still up in the air. And once again, we just have not seen that sustained high transaction pressure yet.
Yeah, I think I totally co-sign everything that Matt said. And I think that the mental model here is from simple order, simple rules, complexity emerges. And so there are solutions to moving Bitcoin transactions that don't require moving them on chain, right? I mean, many Lightning Network, side chains, et cetera. There are different proposals, things like BIP300, drive chains, which I'm not entirely sure if I buy or not, but still it said, you don't have to settle every single transaction on chain with the ultimate finality that it's just not every transaction needs that level of priority, right? And so, like, yeah, we can't settle the world's transactions on chain, but we also can't send the world's Amazon packages on, cargo ships. That's just not how things work. So I think that there will be different modalities by which people transact with Bitcoin, and there will be different technology suites that are built on top of Bitcoin that allow transaction capability.
Yeah, I think there's a time preference thing too. This is the age old, we're on Bitcoin's time. Bitcoin's not on our time. You're going to learn harshly. Bitcoin doesn't give a shit about your business interests or your desires or use case. Changing it's going to be slow. It's going to be difficult because Bitcoin's operating on 1,000-year time frame as a project, and all of us would be lucky to live 100 years. So I think people get that wrong all the time, and they overvalue their self-interest and they undervalue Bitcoin's interests. Another thing on this one is I tell the story all the time. Dylan, my chief of staff, my best friend, we've been back and forth between Europe constantly, and the flight's usually like 6 to 8 hours. And he leaned over to me once and he was like, when are they going to engineer a 3-hour flight? Wouldn't we pay for that? It doesn't matter if you fly private or you're first class or this, it still takes me 8 hours to get to Europe. When is the smart engineer in Stanford going to build the 2-hour flight? And my response was, I'm sure there's an engineer in Stanford that'll sell you a 2-hour flight, but your risk of death is going to go from you're not going to die to 50% chance of dying. It's risky. Is that when you're dealing with human life, you got to be careful. You got to be slow. You got to be meticulous. You got to be careful. Once you've figured out how to fly, don't fuck with it until you're positive it's going to work. So I'm sure someone will sell you a 2-hour flight. It just might not work is the problem.
It literally existed already. It was called the Concorde.
Yeah.
It just was not financially. It was not financially reasonable.
Right.
That was the big issue. Like, people weren't dying in Concords that much. I think there was a couple crashes.
Okay, then my analogy is a little bit ruined. But the point is, Bitcoin's not going to change quickly to try out something that sounds kind of interesting. We're dealing with the future monetary life of humanity. It's going to be slow. I'd sit and buckle myself in and download some rabbit hole recaps to catch up on and spend 8 hours sitting in a United flight as long as I know I'm going to get there. So I want my monetary self to just get there in the future. And so it's just going to be slow. And
I'll give you the analogy I use, which is that Bitcoin takes its engineering cues from civil engineering culture. And so we're very adversarial because obviously in civil engineering, if you have a bridge that is going to collapse, you're going to kill a lot of people, right? And like the highest expression of civil engineering is something like the International Space Station. And that's kind of equivalent to what Bitcoin is. And it's like, can you add a new module to the International Space Station? Yes. But it's going to take a lot of years and a lot of study. And you're going to have to prove your case very well. And you're going to have to, prove it out on Litecoin, something else, before it gets to Bitcoin.
I like that analogy. That's a good one. I would 100% pay for a 2-hour Europe flight, though, by the way.
Oh, hell yeah. Bring back the Concorde. By the way, we haven't reached hyper-Bitcoinization until the Concorde's back. Yeah.
All right, last question, gentlemen, and then I got to go. You guys can honestly continue to host this if you want.
No, I'm good.
Okay. I like this question, though, to wrap it. Give me a Bitcoin hot take that you think other Bitcoiners, Bitcoin Twitter, would probably be on the other side of. That's a good question to end it. It's a challenging one. I'll give you a second to think, too, if you need it.
I'll go first. Yeah, Bitcoin doesn't – there's nothing that Bitcoin does to kill fiat. Fiat's going to exist on a Bitcoinized world. We can't – yeah, I mean, there's just – every time Bitcoiners talk about hyper-Bitcoinization, it gets real hand-wavy. Like, and then just everything magically becomes Bitcoin, and it's like, okay, I mean, listen, I buy that Bitcoin's the best money in existence, but how do you prevent sovereigns from issuing currency against Bitcoin? How do you prevent sovereigns from doing Bitcoin-backed currency? You don't. There's no way to do it, and they're going to do it. So I think that's my biggest hot take is that Bitcoin doesn't kill fiat. Fiat exists. It just goes digital.
I like that. I can give you a tangential hot take off of that. I don't think Bitcoin fixes everything without people doing the work. I think individuals actually have to step up and fucking do the work on all these tangential things that affect freedom in society. And I think that most Bitcoiners that are loudly saying that they're anti-CBDC will be using CBDCs to pay for their blue check in like a year. Probably less.
Yeah, I agree with both those. Actually, I don't know how hot those are. My hot take is let's see. I think I don't know how hot this will be. We'll see. But I think people assume that Bitcoin means death to institutions. Like we're living in this self-custody, self-sovereign world where you don't need corporations and a relationship with a CEO and you don't have to trust anyone. I disagree with that, and I've learned that firsthand building Strike. Corporations and businesses are useful. People employ them and pay them and are customers of them because they're helpful. The trick is, do you have the freedom and the luxury to exit when you need? Are you working within systems that preserve your born given rights, like freedom of speech and your right to own property? So I think Bitcoin gives the proper checks and balances, but I do not believe that we're embarking on the beginning of the end for institutions. I think institutions are helpful to society because they provide efficiencies and they have their place in the market. So as long as the market's free and we've built technology that's protective over human rights, I'm bullish institutions, though. I think there are current institutions that are protected by government and don't operate in a free market, and I expect those to fail. But, building Strike, for a second, I really had to get myself over that of, am I building something that's inevitably going to disrupt myself? And we may disrupt a lot of the current products that we sell today. But as a business, as a Bitcoin-focused financial institution, I think we have a very safe place in this world as long as we continue to listen to customers. And I think Bitcoiners on Twitter, I don't know if they agree with that, but institutions are here to stay because products and services are valuable.
100%.
I agree with that.
I agree with that too.
Fuck, all right.
I don't
Well,
know that we actually produced hot takes, more just like reasonable opinions.
yeah, maybe that's what Bitcoin's missing. All right. Well, I kind of messed this up. There's tons of questions we didn't get to, and I wanted to do some Q&A where I asked some Bitcoin, or not Q&A, trivia. I asked some Bitcoin-based trivia. And I was going to zap people some sats in real time. So we'll have to do it next week, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry about that. Like I said, I'm not a professional podcaster like Matt Odell. But one thing you can rely on me for is I'm going to get better every time. Better every time. All right. Anything for the people before I end this stream?
I want to say I'm sorry I ate during the podcast. I saw a few people being like, why is HODL eating? But the truth is, this is my lunchtime. So
Yeah, he's hungry.
that is
What a dumb fucking question.
Love y'all.
Happy New